Oh, yes. What is going on, everybody? It is Tuesday night, a little bit after 10 o'clock Central Time. That means it's time for Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. We're going to break down all 14 fights on this Saturday's UFC 299 card, the best card this year, maybe the best card this year and last year, and maybe even the year before that. This is a phenomenal card from top to bottom. The 4 prelim fights before the 5 fights that are going to be on the pay-per-view are absolutely phenomenal. We've got some fun early prelim fights as well, like Pereira versus Oleksiejczuk. So this is one of these cards that us MMA fans, we've been waiting for a long time, and now it is happening. 14 fights on this card. So we've got a lot of work to do. Let's get right down to it because this is too good of a card to spend time messing around doing other stuff here. So let's get real quickly. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. We're going to talk about last week. Last week, we were down 0.4 units on the week on our tracked bets. The ass shaving of the week was Ankalaev. He won, but I don't know if he won. You know, it was a very close fight. He was sick for the fight, so he didn't perform as well as he might have had he not been sick. But either way, we kind of squeak by with the ass shaving of the week. The dog pick of the week was Jairzinho Rozenstruik at plus 140, so that hit for us. But I got greedy on the tracked bets, and I bet Rozenstruik to win and under 2.5 rounds to get that plus 140 up to plus 245. And of course, he won it after 4 rounds. But yeah, down 0.4 units. We started off the night really good. We had the Loic Rajabov scorecards equals no action or the finish only prop at plus 140. That was a 1.5 unit bet. So that got us up 2.1 units to start the day. And then I only had 2.5 units left of tracked action. So I said, well, at the very worst, I'm going to end up down 0.4 units. And guess what I did? I wound up down 0.4 units. I had the Mokaev money line, which cashed, parlayed with the Rozenstruik Shamil Gaziev under 1.5 rounds. So that was a 1-unit parlay that missed. I had the fight to not start round 2 for Mokaev versus Perez. Great line there at plus 335. The metrics loved it. I even think that the stylistic matchup was good for it too, but Alex Perez, not very offensive. He did a pretty good job stopping the takedowns and keeping it standing, but while it was standing, he didn't do a whole lot. So that fight did not end in round 1. The under 2.5 rounds, along with Jairzinho Rozenstruik to win at a half unit, did not cash. And then we had a total of a half unit on Nurmagomedov to win by submission in round 1 and Nurmagomedov to win by submission in round 2. He got a takedowns. He got a ton of control time, but he wasn't able to complete the submission. So small down week after having a huge up week of down up 7.27 units the week before. So looking to get right back to the plus side here this week. Had a huge DFS week, man. My cash lineup actually won the single entry. So I actually won over 20 units on my DFS lineups that I put in this week because I only do one, and it was a cash lineup. So that one big for me, but the tracked action was just okay. What's going on with you guys in the chat here today? Who's joining us live? My guy Victor de Jesus, as always, in the room saying, oi, yes, what's good, Weezy in chat? Good to see Vic in here. We got Phil Jizz and Tits Hort Camp in the room saying, Lou sent me here. I was told I'm supposed to say, oi. Yes, you are, and you did it already, Phil Jizz, Tits Horn Camp. So I appreciate you being in the room with us. We got TH saying, oi. We got Olajuwon Dream saying, oi. We got Daz Files saying, oi, oi. We got Cuban Assassin saying, what it do, Weezy? Caitlin Cerminara, Machado fight week. Miami, here I come with some blow. Newport Cigs, a handle of Jack Daniels, a Pitbull CD, and Keith Peterson. Dude, you got everything you need there. The only thing you need to do is take that Pitbull CD and put it where it belongs, in the garbage, and then the rest of it is all ready to go for a lovely weekend in Miami with some fights, some sunshine, and some South Florida action. It'll be a fun time, Cuban Assassin. Thanks for hanging out with us here. We got Kiwi Brew in the room saying, sure all, what is up, dude? We got Phil Jizz saying, the pride of Quakertown, Pennsylvania. Yes, Caitlin Cerminara. Yes, that is right. We got, and she looks like the median of every woman from Quakertown, Pennsylvania. That's funny. Kiwi Brew. We got the owl. We got Presidente Pedro saying, "Oi," with the flapjack stack. Love it. We got DFS by the numbers in the room saying, "Oi." And by the way, DFS by the numbers and I will be doing a very, very special episode of Probability, UFC 299, the return of Probability on YouTube tomorrow night. Mark your calendars. I don't know what channel we're going to do it on yet. We're going to talk about that, but I want to preview the new prop template that I have for you guys and the new betting template that I have for you guys. So we're going to take you through all of the prop bets, all of the over-under bets on the UFC 299 card so that we can find even more ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks after we break down all 14 of these fights today. So keep an eye out for it. The return of Probability tomorrow night. We're going to figure out whose channel we're going to do it on. We got K-Dog in the room saying, "Oi, T.O. Weezy, 299, a hell of a card." It certainly is that. We got Professor Chaos, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Curtis Blaydes fight IQ on Saturday. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how he does there. We got Professor Chaos saying, "What's up, Weezy?" We got Remdog in the room saying, "Oi." We got Pickle Kush saying, "Oi." We got Lou Betcha saying, "Oi, how it do, Weezy?" Doing real good. Free Lou Betcha. Get him back on Twitter. We got Paku in the room saying, "Sure, Uncle, 2:30 p.m. Australian time. I'm interested in your breakdown. Feels like a few betting landmines. Hopefully we can all dodge them all. Good luck, everybody. Thank you for hanging out, Paku." We got Real Fight Picks saying, "Just a tip, just for a second, just to see how it feels. Impregnate me with good predictions." Let's go, Real Fight Picks. We got Fubu saying, "What's good, Uncle? Got spanked last week to the tune of 19 units. Jesus. I played Zahabi, though. Happy with that bet. I didn't get to the Zahabi bet. I was happy with my Rajabov scorecards, no action bet. That was a great one. And then, I didn't hate the Umar by sub bets. I mean, I thought he was close, and I think there was good reason to think that Rosenstruik Kazeev was going to finish under 1.5 rounds, but Kazeev didn't pressure like I thought he was going to, and like he had in all of his previous fights. So didn't wind up being a good bet for me. But you know what, Fubu? It's always at the end of the day about good bankroll management. Don't try to get it all back in 1 week. Stick with the process. Stick with what's worked and get it back incrementally. Excuse me. We got Phil saying Zahabi sharp. Yes, that was a great bet for everybody that made it. Pierre saying, "Thanks for the Rosenstruik tip. I cashed heavy." You got it, Pierre. I'm glad that worked out for you, man. He was the last piece of my DraftKings lineup, and him landing all those jabs over 120 significant strikes was what got me to those 20 units in action that I won on the DFS lineup. Excuse me. We got big show picks from Pub Sports Radio in the room saying, "What up? Good to see you, Big Show." We got MMA Jackal saying, "Let's go. Let's get it, Jackal." I love that. I love that logo, man. That's badass. We got Probability says, "Phil just hits Horncamp. I know a channel you should do it on." We used to do it on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. Yes. Martin Dermov with the printers there. What is up? The big printer MMA in the room with us. We got Chaz Bono's manly beard in the saying, "Hoy, hoy." I'm hoping to double the 32 cents that you won last week. Hey, maybe you could triple it, dude. Either way, let's get it going, Chaz Bono's manly beard. I'm fired up to make some money on this card. We got Victor saying, "Hey, Weezy, I remember you saying Probability is going to be for Patreon members only. Is that still the plan, or will it be for everyone on YouTube?" This week, it's going to be for everybody on YouTube. But going forward, the analytics that you guys are going to see in this new prop template, in the new betting template, it's definitely not something I want just going out to the masses on YouTube for free, because the analytical analysis of these prop markets is very important, and the tools that I've built in order to analyze these props and use the proper pricing tools to determine whether we're overpaying or underpaying based on past performances, based on benchmarks, based on trends is something that I just don't want going out to the public for free. But I'm hoping that when people see the new products that I've built here on probability this week, that they'll want to join the Patreon going forward and get access to these phenomenal analytics and the content that's going to go along with the analytics. And we got Jeff K in the room with the fist. What is up, dude? And we got Not in the Ambrose saying, Weezy, did you happen to catch the Ryan Garcia tweets? No, I did not. I did not check Ryan Garcia's tweets. And Brandon Olson saying, oi, finally a very solid card. That it is. So let's get into it, everybody. We've got 14 fights to break down. I've got the advanced stats here. I've also got the prop template here so that we can analyze some of these over-under bets that I'm looking at, and we're going to highlight a few of them this week when we talk about these different fights. And we're going to start off with the first fight of the night, which according to this is so let me just mess with something real quick here, you guys. I'm going to get the Lin's Cutelaba fight and move that over to where it's supposed to be, which is right there. And then that's going to put us to the first fight of the night, which according to UFC stats is Joanne Wood versus Maryna Moroz. And let's talk about the trends for this fight first. We got Joanne Wood has lost 3 of her last 4 fights. 2 of those 3 losses were by first-round submission. But those losses came against top 5 competition. She was submitted by Talia Santos and Alexa Grasso, and she lost a decision to Lauren Murphy. And the win was over Luana Carolina by split decision in her last fight 1 year ago. Now, Maryna Moroz has dropped her last 2 fights against Jennifer Maia by decision and Karina Silva by submission. But before that, she was on a 3-fight winning streak where she was looking really good. She beat Sabina Mazo, Mayra Bueno Silva, and Maria Agapova before losing a unanimous decision to Maia as a -150 favorite. This is a rematch of a fight that happened back in 2015. It was Maryna Moroz's UFC debut, and she beat Joanne Calderwood back then by first-round armbar, and she was a +425 underdog in that fight. Now, Joanne Wood has the overall experience advantage here with 8 more professional fights and 100 more minutes of pro cage time. She also has the UFC experience advantage with 5 more fights, 40 more minutes of octagon time. And Joanne is really the better minute winner in the striking exchanges. Joanne and Maryna are both very busy at range. Both attempt more than 18 distance strikes per minute, but Wood is accurate at 47%, and Moroz couldn't hit water if she fell out of a boat with a 28% distance striking accuracy, which you see right here. Joanne's positive 3.07 distance striking differential over a massive sample size of 104 minutes of distance striking is elite. She even has 3 UFC knockdowns and 1 UFC win by way of KO. So I rate Joanne as the better minute winner at distance because of the accuracy differential in her strikes and because she's so busy and throws a lot of kicks and maintains range well with those kicks. And Joanne Wood has been the more efficient wrestler in the UFC. She's got a 54% takedown accuracy that you can see right here compared to only 22% for Maryna Moroz. And she's stuffing takedowns at a 59% rate is Wood, while for Moroz, she's only showing 45% takedown defense. So Joanne also has a positive 0.86 clinch and ground strike differential, and she lands 1.7 more. She lands 1.74 more per minute than the divisional average. So wherever the fight goes, Joanne stays busy with her striking and outlands her opponents. And Joanne Wood has fought the UFC competition with the better win-loss records over her 16-fight UFC career. Maryna Moroz is almost 6 years younger, 1 inch taller, and she has a 2-inch reach advantage. And Maryna has the better UFC finish rate at 33% compared to only 25% for Wood. And she's more durable, having only been finished once in her career in 5 losses and 16 fights, while Joanne has been finished in 5 of 8 career losses, all by submission. And Maryna has been the better minute winner in the clinch and ground exchanges. When she gets fights to the ground, she's shown dominance while there. She's 2 wins and 0 losses to the submission in the UFC, while Joanne Calderwood is 1 win and 5 losses to the submission in the UFC. So Maryna only has 6 takedowns in 11 UFC fights, and she has allowed almost twice as many takedowns against her at 11, but she still manages to win over 52% of the control time positions that her fights have been in, and she's actively trying to finish fights on the ground, attempting 0.67 submissions per 15 minutes. So this is Joanne Wood's retirement fight, and she's on a 1-year layoff here. Moroz makes more money on OnlyFans than she does fighting, and she's on a 2-fight losing streak. And it's hard to tell if she's 100% in the MMA game right now. This feels like a great spot to pass on. I think Moroz is the rightful favorite. She's younger, taller, longer, more dangerous on the ground, and her recent wins have been better than Joanne's. But Joanne has the overall and the UFC experience advantages. She's got the volume and the minute winning advantage on the feet, and she's the more efficient wrestler who's fought the better brand of competition overall. I'll pick Maryna Moroz to win this fight by decision by landing the bigger shots at range, bullying Joanne in the clinch while mixing in the offensive grappling game. It would be cool if Joanne could go out on a win and avenge this loss from earlier in her career, but I don't think that happens at 38 years of age, with her already saying that this is her last professional fight. So Maryna Moroz by decision is going to be the pick here. So let's go down here and pick Maryna, the Iron Lady Moroz, to win this fight by decision. She's also got a big durability advantage, just only having been finished once. And it was by Karina Silva, who has a 100% finish rate in something like 16 pro wins. So I think we can, forgive Moroz for that one. But yeah, we're going to go with Maryna Moroz by decision here. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got Chaz Bono saying roses are red, roast beef and gravy. I only lose money when I bet on the ladies. Yeah, man. That's why I stopped making females the ass shaving of the week, because they always fuck it up for me. They always let me down. So yeah, I don't make confident picks on the female fights anymore, because I just feel there's so much variance. Olajuwon Dream saying Kevin Holland submission plus 700 seems juicy to me. Of course, he might have another gentleman's agreement, though. Yeah, you never know, dude, with that dude. Moroz more worried about her OnlyFans subs. Yeah, for sure. Roses are red, bacon and ham, only bet on women who look like a man. There you go, dude. Matthew Chalk saying, Weezy, looking forward to your dog of the night. Some close lines. Yeah, man, it's an interesting one for the dog of the week. I've got a couple of plus money bets already this week, though, so we'll find something nice for you, Matt. And Hap Chandler saying, how you doing, Weezy? Picks are Song by decision, JDM by TKO, Michael Venom Page by decision, Poirier TKO, and O'Malley decision. I'm going to definitely agree with a couple of those, my man. Matt saying, I like that MVP decision. Betting that with you. The retirement fade versus the OnlyFans fade. Yeah, that's for sure, man. And why aren't we talking about the fact Moroz already subbed JoJo? Yeah, the UFC debut, she won it by armbar in the very first round as a plus 425 underdog. So yeah, man, but that was a long time ago. That was back in 2014, I think. So a lot of time has passed since then, but some things never change. And one thing that never has changed since then is that JoJo Calderwood still loves getting submitted out there. Pierre says, seems like a degenerate fight to bet on. Yeah, a bit of a degenerate fight. I mean, people have different reads in different fights. For me, I'm either betting on a 39-year-old who's about to retire or on a 32-year-old on a 2-fight losing streak who's making a shit ton of money on OnlyFans. And because of that, she probably doesn't have to train as hard or be as all in the MMA game. And I'm laying juice on that fighter. So yeah, I'm staying away from this one. This might be one of those rare OnlyFans wins. You never know. Kevin Holland's mad cool, but he has a big ego and won't do what is needed to win. That's very true. Moroz subbed Karina Silva and then got subbed by her later. That's true, man. Roses are red, violets are lavender. You made a nice pick when you chose Eric Anders. Yeah, he barely fucking won. I mean, he won most of the minutes of that fight, but goddamn, Jamie Pickett landed a bomb, knocked him out, and he was out before he hit the ground. And I think he woke up when his head hit the canvas. So great recoverability by Anders to come back after that. And we know Anders is a very durable dude, but Jamie caught him, man. Jamie caught him, and he was close. That's a fair point, says Fubu. All right, you guys, we got to keep moving. We got to get on to this next fight. Oh, and we never even got you the line for that. So Joanne Wood, plus 184 underdog here. Maryna Moroz, you know, they got her at about 68, 69% implied probability here at that minus 214 line. Fight doesn't go to decision at plus 215 for this fight. And the pick is Maryna Moroz by decision. All right. Next fight is going to be CJ Vergara, who is a gigantic favorite. A gigantic underdog to Assu Almabaev. Vergara plus 425 on the money line. Almabaev minus 575. Fight doesn't go to decision here for this fight. Minus 145. So we got those stats up there. Let's first talk about the trends for this fight. CJ Vergara has won 3 of his last 4 fights. He's fresh off a 29-28 unanimous decision win over Vinicius Salvador. And before that, a back-and-forth 2-round war versus Daniel Lacerda, where he was close to being finished, ran away for about half the round, but wound up recovering and getting a second-round finish of his own. And Assu Almabaev finished Ode Osbourne in the second round via rear naked choke in his UFC debut. And he's currently on a 14-fight win streak, with his last loss coming back in 2017 by unanimous decision against the 1-2 Memin Mamedov. And before that, his first pro loss was against Takir Ulanbekov, and that happened with 9 seconds left in round 3. He got finished. Now, CJ Vergara is going to be the bigger dude here. He's going to be 2 inches taller and have a 3-inch reach advantage over Assu. And he's got the UFC experience advantage as well, with 4 more fights and 55 more minutes of octagon time. And CJ has really good pressure on the feet to go along with some solid Muay Thai. He lands 6.23 distance strikes per minute with over 54% accuracy. He's 7-0 to the knockout in his career, and he wants to keep fights standing, as evidenced by the fact that he's attempted a grand total of 0 takedowns in his 5 UFC fights, and his fights have taken place at distance striking range about 2/3 of his UFC cage time. So he wins 50% of the control time positions in his fights, despite attempting 0 takedowns and having 26 attempted against him. So his grappling efficiency is actually very good. And I have to give CJ the overall UFC strength to schedule advantage, but the combined UFC records of the 3 guys that CJ Vergara has beaten is 1 win and 9 losses. And he lost to Ode Osbourne by unanimous decision, and Almabaev subbed Osbourne in round 2 with a rear naked choke. So a little bit of MMA math there in favor of Assu Almabaev. Now, Almabaev is going to be 2.5 years younger than CJ. He has the overall experience advantage with 3 more fights and 30 more minutes of cage time. And Almabaev is the superior wrestler and submission grappler in this matchup. He's 9 wins and 0 losses to the submission as a pro, and Vergara 0 wins and 2 losses to the sub. So obviously, due to the relentless pressure CJ fights with on the feet, Assu will be looking to use his wrestling to get this fight to the ground. Almabaev showed off his grappling game in his debut versus Osbourne, where he got a takedown in each of the first 2 rounds, was able to get to Ode Osbourne's back in the second round and finish with the rear naked choke. Almabaev showed off some solid wrestling in the Magomarov fight, where he won all 3 rounds with takedowns and top control. And he had some good back and forth wrestling exchanges with former UFC fighter in Zach Makovsky over in Brave. And it's clear he's the most comfortable when he's in the clinch and on the mat in top control position. That's Almabaev. So CJ needs to keep this fight standing, and Almabaev needs to wrestle. I like CJ's pressure on the feet. I like his Muay Thai. The fact that he really has that dog in him the measurables advantages he has, and his power. Almabaev is a little more experienced overall, and he's the superior minute and moment winner in the grappling exchanges. Almabaev 9-0 to the submission, where Vergara is 0-2, and Vergara is 7-0 to the KO, where Assu is 3-1 to the KO. So this fight comes down to which fighter can successfully implement their game plan. CJ has been controlled for 10 minutes and 40 seconds of his 63 minutes of octagon time, and that's on 7 takedowns allowed on 26 attempts. Claydson and Tatsuro Taira both had plenty of success taking him down and keeping him there. So I do think Assu gets the takedowns here and wins the minutes of this fight on the ground and wins a decision. But if CJ can stuff some takedowns and get back up when he is taken down, he's going to look like a very solid underdog play at this price. Almabaev by decision is the pick, but CJ is not an easy fight for him. And this line is completely out of control where it's at right now, in my opinion. This is a very easy dog or pass spot, in my opinion, on the betting line. I'm going to pick Almabaev because I haven't seen Vergara against people who persistently wrestle against him show the kind of takedown defense that I need to see in order for me to be confident that he can cover that line, that he can win one of these 3 rounds to maybe get me to a plus 3.5 points handicap here. But I do believe that he is the far more dangerous fighter on the feet. He's got more UFC experience. He's got the measurables advantages here. There's a lot of reasons to like the CJ Vergara side. And with this line getting just completely blown out, I think it's fair that CJ Vergara as a dog play this week makes a lot of sense. It's a big fat plus money number, and I think he's got a couple of ways to win this fight, but I am going to pick Assu Almabaev to win this fight by decision, but I will not be getting to any bets on the Almabaev side this week, ladies and gentlemen. All right. We got Daniel Sullivan is in the room saying, don't overthink it. Almabaev sub. Yeah, I think he can get it, but we're going to have to see if he can sub CJ Vergara. And Fubu says, I'm overthinking it. We got Martin saying Vergara. Yeah, I know. He gives up his back way too often, and that's why I can't pick him here, because I do think that Assu, once he gets on the back, that's the round and potentially the fight. So it's tough. But I think Vergara can maybe win one of these rounds and maybe even win 2 if he does stuff the takedowns. Because at least CJ knows what Assu Almabaev is going to do. He knows he's got to stuff takedowns in order to win this fight. He's not under the impression that he's going to out-wrestle this guy. CJ's attempted 0 takedowns. He knows what he's there to do. So let's see if he can implement the game plan and keep this thing standing. Assu Almabaev odds suck because of the 1 eyebrow penalty. I love it. MMA math isn't real, obviously, but we're talking about a guy who lost to Osborne and a guy who beat the brakes off of him. Yeah, and MMA math, people say that. People say MMA math doesn't work. No, it does sometimes. Just like some other, like sometimes just being like, this guy's got the bigger reach, I'll bet he wins. Well, sometimes you're going to win just because the guy has the bigger reach. Sometimes you won't, But MMA math does work some of the time. It is another piece of information that we can use when we're breaking down fights. But it's definitely not the be all and end all of how you pick winners, for sure. Fubu saying, yeah, Osborne playing quit in that fight. Yeah, it did look like that, man. It looked like after the first round, like he was completely done. It was weird. Like he wanted to quit on the stool. We got I think CJ is tough enough to survive 15 minutes. I like Almabaev by decision. That's my pick. Yeah. We got Martin Durmov saying line is wide for sure, though. Yeah, dude. It's at -5. What do we got? Yeah, -575. Dude, that's bonkers. That's 85%. I mean, CJ Vergara is a tough fucking fighter, you guys. A lot of pressure. He hits hard. He walks forward. He's got good cardio and he pushes a pace. So, Assu better get those takedowns. And we got OnlyFans in the room saying, we want to sponsor you, Uncle Weezy. Name your price. No nudes, by the way, only stats. Yeah, dude, if I was doing nudes, unfortunately, the price would have to be free because nobody's paying for that shit. But Yeah, dude, you never know. I mean, like, OnlyFans could be another great place for me to make these phenomenal stats that you see right here on Just the Tip with your Uncle Weezy. The matchup template where we put the fighters' stats side by side and compare them against the divisional averages. The prop template where we take the betting lines for the fight goes and doesn't go, the over and under 2.5. We compare those lines. We turn them into implied probabilities. We compare those implied probabilities against the benchmarks for the division, against the fighter performances to kind of show whether these lines are over or underpriced. OnlyFans, Uncle Weezy, UFC statistics, gaining edges, stacking cash tickets like flapjacks. It seems like a match made in heaven. We got knee page only stats. Yes, for sure, man. Where can we get these stats? The link is on the Patreon, but maybe you can also get them on OnlyFans starting next week. You never know, man. And we got Katie Wee Brew saying just Photoshop the OnlyFans, Weezy. Get your frat boys to help you out. They could help me out with that. A lot of good graphic designers that I know. And we got real only stats. I'd pay for that. Yes, only stats for sure. Definitely no nudes, you know. Well, maybe some tasteful ones, but mostly we want to concentrate on the stats, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's get on to this next fight. Ooh, and it's going to be a fun one here. We've got Robelis Despaigne, who is a minus 326 favorite in his UFC debut, going up against Josh Parisian. Parisian, the comeback, plus 251 here. Fight doesn't go to decision. Juiced to the tits, ladies and gentlemen, at minus 1,400. And maybe that's because Robelis Despaigne has 4 professional fights, and his average fight time is 1.3 minutes, and his entire pro career spans a grand total of 5.22 minutes. But this is going to be a fun one to break down. So let's talk about it here. Let's first talk about the trends. Robelis pro MMA career, 4 fights, 5 minutes of cage time, 100% knockout rate in 4 wins. And this is going to be a step up in competition for him. Josh Parisian's 2-4 in the UFC. And he's lucky he's not 1-5. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. And the 2 guys that he's beaten in the UFC have a combined record of 0 wins and 6 losses at the UFC level. Now, Robelis Despaigne is a freak of a human being. He is 3 inches taller, has an 8-inch reach advantage, and he's a switch stance fighter versus an orthodox fighter here. Both of these guys have excellent career finish rates, and Parisian in particular has an 86% finish rate in 15 pro wins, but Despaigne has a 100% finish rate in 4 pro wins, all by KO, all in the first round. The first thing this dude touches you with usually ends your night, and he definitely has freakish power, height, and length. This guy is not somebody you want to spend time at distance striking range with. And he has a traditional martial arts base, and he's an elite distance striker, is Robelis Despaigne. He's a bronze medalist in Taekwondo in the 2012 London Olympics. He's extremely precise and powerful with his strikes, with the range, the length, the power, and precision this guy has on the feet. Striking exchanges against him should be avoided at all costs. Now, Josh Parisian, he's 1 year younger than Robelis, and he's also got significant overall and UFC experience advantages with 18 more pro fights, 160 more minutes of pro cage time, and 7.5 more years as a pro mixed martial artist. Josh also has 6 more UFC fights and 70 more minutes of octagon time. And you like that when you're getting the younger guy who's also significantly more experienced and who's fought the much better level of competition. You can make a case for betting the underdog in those situations quite a few times. And I think it's important to note that Josh has shown the ability to go a full 3 rounds at a high pace for a heavyweight. He's durable. He's got a ton of heart. So against an unknown quantity like Despaigne, it's important to know that Josh might be able to weather the early storm and take over late like he did in the Bordeaux fight if Robelis doesn't catch him with anything flush early in this fight. Excuse me. And this is a striker versus grappler matchup. It's not the Parisian can't strike. He can definitely strike. He's solid there. He stays busy. He's got a wide variety of attacks, and he's durable, so he can take one to give one, but there's no way in hell that Josh Parisian should voluntarily strike with this guy. So he does need to grapple in order to be successful in this particular matchup. In Josh's 2 UFC wins, he's 4 of 11 on his takedown attempts, and he's accrued 7.5 minutes of control time in those 2 fights. So that's 33% control time for. So he has demonstrated the ability to use his wrestling and grappling game at this level against low-level opponents like Roque Martinez and Alan Baudot. And since we have no choice at this point but to consider Despaigne to be a low-level grappler, we have to keep in mind that there is a path to victory for Parisian outside of him landing a spectacular spinning fat kick or a spinning fat fist for that matter. If he can get an early takedown or 2 against Robelis and weather the early storm, clinch up with him, wear on him, make this dude carry his weight, that would be a way to neutralize Robelis early in the fight when he's at his most dangerous and drag him into the deep water where we have no idea how he's going to perform. And Josh Parisian has fought, beaten, and lost to the much better brand of competition as a professional. So Josh needs to fight very smart here, or he will get violently served and wake up looking at the lights with a severe headache. This Despaigne guy is a freak, and if you give him any space at all, he can snipe you from angles and distances that no fighter in the UFC would be able to replicate. He has a legitimate high-level striking background, having medaled in the 2012 London Olympics, and his unique measurables present a unique and difficult challenge for his opponents. There is so much we don't know about Despaigne, though. What does his ground game look like? Don't know. How about his conditioning? Don't know. Can he get an underhook in the clinch, circle towards it, and get his back off the fence? Haven't seen him do that yet. At what point does he become more sloppy and less dangerous? That could be 2 minutes into the fight. That could be 4 or 6 minutes into the fight. We don't know. These are all pieces of missing information, and laying this kind of juice on a debuting fighter with this many unanswered questions is a very risky proposition. Despaigne's 4 pro opponents came into their fights with Robelis with records of 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, and 1-0. So needless to say, fighting a guy like Josh Parisian with a 15-7 pro record, he's got 6 UFC fights under his belt, is going to be a huge step up in competition. And it's a pay-per-view card in front of a live, very raucous crowd in South Florida, very close to Cuba. So this crowd is probably going to be firmly in the corner of Robelis Despaigne. But with that debut, with that excitement comes the potential for an adrenaline dump, comes the potential for nerves, comes the potential for just gassing early. Josh needs to clinch up early, wear on Robelis, drag him into the later rounds, and see if his conditioning holds up. Taking down a guy who's 6'7" is gonna be tricky. But if Josh can get him down with his back flat on the mat, he can keep him there and fuck him up while he's there. So there is a path for Josh to win this fight if he can safely close the distance, clinch up, and get Robelis down to the mat. Even in Josh's 2 UFC wins versus Martinez and Baudot, those guys found success against Josh, landing shots at distance, and Baudot in particular picked Josh apart in the first round, and Baudot gassed out trying to finish the durable Parisian early and wound up getting taken down and ground and pounded in the second. So if strikers of that quality can pick Josh apart, I think Robelis can too. Interesting heavyweight matchup with a very intriguing prospect in Despaigne, and I'm going to pick Robelis to knock out Josh Parisian in the very first round. So let's go to Tapology here, and we're going to go to Robelis Despaigne, the big boy, and we're going to pick him to beat Josh Parisian by KO in the very first round. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. All right. Let's see. We got Hap saying, hey, Weezy, respect. How much work you put into this, brother? Did you make these templates before your channel just for fun or no? Yeah, I made them before my channel. I was just creating sheets to create some new DraftKings analytics because they kind of had like points per fight, that you score. But I want to know what the points per win were. I want to know how many points they were scoring per minute. And DraftKings didn't have access to that. So I started kind of creating these sheets when I was playing MMA DFS before MMA gambling was legal in Illinois. And this is what I would do. So in order to get an edge, I'd kind of create these spreadsheets. I created the templates so I could put shit side by side and kind of determine who was, scoring points at a DraftKings pace, who was more likely to finish inside the distance. Get the first round finish prop in there, get the inside the distance prop in there, and the money line in there to find out, what salaries were value and not. So yeah, I started it for fun. I shared it with a few guys in the Discord that I was in, which was DFS by the Numbers, Brady's Discord. And he saw the sheets that I was making. And he was like, dude, this is really cool. Maybe I can, make this available to my Patreon members. So he paid me a little bit every week to give them those templates. And that's what started, me doing shows with Brady and then starting my own YouTube channel. So yeah, we got Freak of Nature Fraud versus Sloppy Tough Guy with no hands. Yeah, this is not a fight I think you want to have a shit ton of units on, man. This could go a couple of different ways for sure. Ryan Suck in the room saying, love Weezy, baby. Let's stack them like flapjacks. Let's get it, Ryan. Matthew Chalk saying, this new guy has an 87 each range. He could reach the cookie jar at age 4. He's huge. He is absolutely huge. Last week would have taken down the main DraftKings contest if Mokaev would have outscored Urseg, but he decided to lay in the cage. Yeah, Ryan, he was sick, man. I had Mokaev in my lineup too. I think it was Mokaev, Christian Leroy Duncan. I had Rosenstruik and Loic Rajabov in the mid-range. I had Ayman Zahabi, and I had Ludovic Klein. So yeah, if Mokaev would have not just scored like 60-something points as a 9,000 salary, I would have had a massive week 2 for sure. Pierre saying Robelis will win, but at what cost? -350, easy pass. Agree with you there. Here's what we know about him. He's big. Yes, we do know that about him. He is huge. We got Chaz saying Robelis Despaigne is Cuban. He could be 137 years old. That is very true. Very true. Fubu says, and he has Olympic-level PED experience. Yeah, he's a big, strong boy, man. But you can't teach height, and you can't teach length. Hey, Unc, excited for this card. Had to tune in, but going to watch the rest later. Can't wait to see the ass shaving. Let's get it, Garrett. We got Hap saying, people hating on Despaigne for no reason because he has success. It's funny. He's going to take Parisian skin and wear it in less than 10 seconds. I mean, I'm picking him to win this one. It's going to be really hard for Josh to close the distance against this guy. My guy Bob is in the room saying, what's up, Big Weez? We in here listening. Let's get it, man. We got Remdog saying the ad I had to watch before Robelis tape was longer than the fight. Yeah, man. You're talking 9 seconds, 8 seconds, 4 seconds, 3 seconds, and 12 seconds, his last 3 wins. We got Drake in the room saying, I'm working on a boneless mango. Who wants to invest? That would be badass because I love mangoes and the pit is a pain in the ass. So I'd like to be able to peel that thing and then just chop it up without having to worry about that pit in the middle. So Drake, once again, changing the game out here. Where it's just Drake's world. We're all just living in it here. We got Hap Chandler saying, if I was Dana, I would trade Mokaev to Mokaev to 1 for their lowest level striker. That boring, dude. Hey, Uncle Weezy, I don't want the tip. I want the whole thing. Well, we're going to give it to you today, my man. 69 of you here live right now. So talk about a beautiful little coincidence. 69 of you here. He wants the whole thing. Let's give it to him. Ryan Sucks saying, wow, you were right there. We may have had same lineup. Yeah, I know I was right there from taking down like 5K or something like that in that main. 69. There we go. Drake. And I had Klein, Mokaev, Zahabi, Duncan, Rosenstruik, Rajabov. That was my lineup. Yeah, 37th. If you look in the in that, you'll see Weezy 74, Ryan. That's me. We had the exact same lineup. If Mokaev did, it would have gotten first. Yep, absolutely. But I'll take those 20 units that I won on that lineup. So, all right, you guys, let's move on to the next fight. It's going to be one that we've talked about, or no, actually, it's going to be Michel Pereira at -145 going up against Michal Oleksiejczuk at +125. The fight doesn't go to decision here, about 67% at -200 right now on the betting line. So let's first start talking about the trends for this fight. Michel Pereira is white hot right now. He's on a 6-fight winning streak. And after coming back off back-to-back losses against Tristan Connolly and an old Diego Sanchez, where frankly, he looked and fought like a self-absorbed dumbass that was more concerned with showing off his dance moves and acrobatic techniques than he was with winning fights. But Pereira cleaned that shit up, and now he's all business. And this is going to be his second fight at middleweight after knocking out the short notice opponent in Andre Petroski in the first round of his middleweight debut. Michal Oleksiejczuk, he's won 5 of his last 7 after he came off a 2-fight losing streak against Ovince St. Preux and Jimmy Crute, where his wrestling and grappling weaknesses were put on Front Street for all to see. Since then, he's shown better takedown defense and grappling, but his only bad loss in his last 6 fights came to Caio Borralho, who finished him with a rear naked choke after getting the fight to the ground in the second round. Now, Michel Pereira, he's going to have the overall experience advantage in this matchup. He's got 16 more fights and 270 more minutes of cage time, 2 more years as a professional fighter. And he's definitely the more explosive athlete. I mean, you could just tell by looking at Pereira and Oleksiejczuk side by side that one guy is a lot more gifted of an athlete than the other one. He's the better minute winner and the more technical striker, really wherever the fight goes, in my opinion. He's the better submission grappler, is Pereira. He's more likely to win minutes with his grappling game than Oleksiejczuk, and he's got the better strength of schedule metrics overall and in his UFC wins. Now, Oleksiejczuk, he's 1 year younger. He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage, and he's the southpaw in this matchup, and he's the better moment winner at distance striking range. He's got much better power numbers than Michel Pereira. He's got 7 knockdowns in 12 fights, does Oleksiejczuk. 6 of his 7 UFC wins come by way of knockout, and his distance knockdown percentage at 2.19% is better than Pereira's, which is at 0.66%. And Michel is a pressure fighter. I'm sorry, I called him Michel. Michal Oleksiejczuk is a pressure fighter, and Pereira does his best work when he has space to get off his kicks and when he's on the front foot. I think Michal's pressure is going to be a major problem for Michel Pereira. Now, this is a great matchup. Oleksiejczuk is rarely in boring fights. He always brings pressure, and he puts his opponents on the back foot. And Pereira is a guy whose movement helps him deal with pressure. Michel's footwork, his conditioning, and durability are excellent, and his excellent athleticism and defensive lateral movement allow him to be there for the full 15, giving him plenty of opportunities to land from the outside, frustrate his opponent while looking for the big shot. Pereira is the better grappler in this matchup, but I don't remember him ever using it to win more than an isolated minute or 2 in the UFC, but he would be smart to mix it in here, especially at the end of close rounds. I don't like this matchup for Michel Pereira. He doesn't handle pressure particularly well, and his inability to be offensive when he's being walked down is going to be a serious problem against someone as durable, powerful, and relentless on the feet as Oleksiejczuk is. I love the power and purpose Oleksiejczuk throws with, especially to the body, and his constant forward movement combined with the consistent body work makes it easy to see why he breaks so many fighters with that style of attack. Michal puts stamps on his fights, while Michel Pereira prefers to stay on the outside, pick and poke, blast forward occasionally with bursts of offense, but Michal's forward pressure won't allow Pereira to be able to do that, since I've never seen Michel win UFC fights any other way. I'm going to pick Michal Oleksiejczuk to pull off the upset and do it with style. breaking Pereira in the second round by knockout. I think the pressure, the power, and the relentless walking forward of Michal Oleksiejczuk is going to put Michel on his back feet, make him play defense. And I think Oleksiejczuk, a guy who doesn't really kind of throw straight, he's bringing hooks. Well, the way that Pereira moves laterally, I think Michal, with the pressure and with the hook attack, is going to corral him and find that big shot and knock this dude out. So I am going with Michal Oleksiejczuk to win this fight by second round knockout. So let's go with Hussar Oleksiejczuk, round 2 KO. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. We've got Battle of the Countries That Can't Spell Michael. Yes, sir. We got Pierre saying Pereira will get KO'd like Johnny Walker. Great value. I mean, it's a bad stylistic matchup. I mean, you guys have watched Oleksiejczuk. He's a tough guy to deal with, man. That pressure, that power is very difficult to withstand for long periods of time. We got Curtis Clark saying, Lord Michal, I like it. We got Prince of Mischief saying, I had to look it up because I couldn't believe it. Kid Rock lives in a house that's a replica of the White House. I did not know that. Dude's made a lot of money, so I guess you could fucking hire a guy and be like, yeah, let me get the plans for the White House. I want a replica. Fubu saying, I've never been able to read Michal. Yeah, Michael, whichever one. I love Lord Michael, says Curtis Clark. I like him too, man. I really like Oleksiejczuk here, says Paku. He'll be way better in the yellow or red zone. Oleg's boxing is very good, and he uses his technique to generate a lot of power. Well, Paku, me and you are thinking the exact same thing here with Oleksiejczuk round 2 KO. We got Go in the room. My guy Go Flamingo saying, yo, Uncle Wee's dog. He's saying sure to Kiwi, and Kiwi is saying sure to Go. My favorite people from Australia there. And we got Hap Chandler saying, I think it's Michal, right? For Oleksiejczuk, it's Michal, I think. Like Michal. And then for Pereira, I think it's Michel Pereira. So, but it could be Michal. You might be right, Hap. I'm not sure, man. I am definitely not. Oh, God. One thing I am not is a master of Polish pronunciation. Now, I can spell Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk. Because I type so much shit out, I've actually memorized how to spell it. Like, I still don't know how to spell Young Jacek, but the Polish names are tough, dude. But once you learn how to pronounce them, they all get pronounced the same way and with the same rules. But man, I don't know. Michal, says Curtis Clark. So I think that's how I've been saying it. Martin saying, did you see Oleg said he doesn't have a coach and he's sparring his friends? Yes, I did see that. That was brought up, Martin, in the Discord today. And evidently, Michal said that he's not paying coaches this time around and he's sparring with his buddies. And that's not a great thing. But he did say something that kind of makes sense. And they said, well, what about a game plan? And he goes, I'm a striker. I don't need a game plan. And the bottom line is that Oleksiejczuk has fought the same game plan in every single fight in the UFC. So, I think people might be over thinking that, like why Michal doesn't have coaches for this camp. He's had coaches his whole life. He knows what to do. He knows what he's good at. He's probably just trying to save some money and keep that entire check for himself. And like every other fighter in the UFC, this dude makes more when he wins than when he loses. So he's going to go out there and try to win that fight. Don't forget the Lord. All right, let's go. A lot more work to do still here, you guys. Iwan Cutelaba, -133, going up against Philipe Lins at +113 here. This is a weird one, you guys. I don't know what's going on with this fight, but if you look at Bet Online, they have a line for it, but they're not offering any time props yet. Nobody's really, a lot of people aren't even acknowledging this fight. So I'll just take you through real quick what I wrote. Oh yeah, I think, wait, did it go? Yeah, so Cutelaba is on. Oh yeah, let me get the stats up for you here, you guys. Yeah, there they are. All right, Cutelaba was on a 3-fight losing streak before his last fight. He knocked out Tanner Boser in the first round. He's 3 wins, 6 losses, and a draw in his last 10 fights. Linz is on a 3-fight winning streak over Marcin Prokhnio, Ovince St. Preux, and Maxim Grishin. This fight was originally scheduled for October of last year, but Linz had to pull out with medical issues. He pulls out more than Peter North, so maybe that's why they're not making these lines, because they're worried Felipe Linz isn't going to be able to make it to the scale. But Felipe is going to be the bigger dude, 1 inch taller, 3-inch reach advantage. He's got about 40 more minutes of pro cage time, 6.5 more years as a pro fighter. Felipe's dangerous on the feet. 9 career wins by knockout. That's 53% of his total wins. And when he lets his hands go, he can definitely hurt you if he lands. He went out there with total disrespect for Ovince St. Preux's skill set at this point in his career. And in their matchup, he shaved his ass. So this guy can definitely hurt you on the feet if you aren't careful. And Felipe's a BJJ black belt. And while he's not the better wrestler, he's most likely the more dangerous submission grappler in this matchup. Is Linz is 4-0 to the submission in his career, while Cutelaba's 2 wins and 4 losses to the submission. Felipe's averaging 1.5 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's shown 100% takedown defense on 4 attempts against. He will probably see that many from Cutelaba in the first round, though. So we're going to find out a lot more about Linz's takedown defense in this fight. Now, Cutelaba, he's 8 years younger than Philipe. He's been the much busier professional. He's got 6 more pro fights than Linz, even though Linz has been fighting for 6.5 years longer as a pro. So while Linz fights just barely more than once a year, Ion is fighting about 2.5 times a year. And Cutelaba also has the UFC experience advantage with 10 more UFC fights and about an hour more of octagon time. He's the more opportunistic finisher is Cutelaba. 88% finish rate in 17 pro wins. 2 submissions, 13 knockouts. And that's compared to a 77% finish rate for Linz with 4 submissions and 9 knockouts for Linz. Now, Ion has finished 4 of his 6 UFC wins, all of them by KO, while Linz has only finished 1 of 3, and that came against the rotting corpse of Ovince St. Preux. Ion has crazy power on the feet. He's only landed 2 knockdowns in 15 UFC fights, but 4 of his 6 UFC wins come by way of knockout, and he's hurt several guys with his striking without actually dropping them. Ion has average distance striking metrics. He's not very accurate or defensively responsible, but he hits hard and he stays busy, so that makes him pretty dangerous. He's got a high-level Sambo background, very active winning minutes with his wrestling and grappling, 4.75 takedowns per 15 minutes on 8.1 attempts, out-controlling his opponents 26% to 15%, winning over 63% of the control time positions his fights are in. And he's always aggressive trying to finish fights. And if he gets on top of you, his ground and pound is very difficult to deal with. And Ion has fought the way better brand of competition at the UFC level, and it isn't even close. Cutelaba has 8 UFC losses, but the combined records of the guys who beat him in the UFC are 70 wins and 34 losses. So he's losing to the best guys in the division like Jared Cannonier, Glover Teixeira, Magomed Ankalaev twice, Ryan Spann, Johnny Walker, Kennedy and Nchekwu. All of those guys destroy Felipe Linz. So I think the high level of competition the 29-year-old Cutelaba has fought thus far in the UFC is going to serve him well in this test against Linz. This is a fascinating, fun fight. I like Linz's size, power on the feet, minute-winning ability in the clinch game, the conditioning, the submission grappling. But on the Cutelaba side, I like the youth, the power, the upper body Greco-Roman style wrestling that's high percentage and effective, and the ground and pound is phenomenal. Both of these guys do an excellent job of finding moments to finish fights wherever the fight goes, as 28 of their 34 combined wins, that's 82%, come inside the distance, and 12 of their 14 combined pro losses are finished losses. So Linz is 4-1 in decisions in his career, while Cutelaba is 2-1-1. So I do favor Linz's minute winning and conditioning if this fight gets out of the first round. So I'm going to have to pick Linz to get the job done here. And even though it's not the most likely outcome, my official pick will be Felipe Linz to win by decision. So we're going to go here, scroll down just a little bit. Pick Philipe Lins to win this one by decision. All right. We got Oleksiejczuk is a terrible scrabble hand. Yeah, it is, man. She moaned too much for me, says Kiwi Brew. We got Oleksiejczuk was looking for a coach. The man at the counter said, "You must be Polish." Oleksiejczuk said, "How did you know?" The guy behind the counter said, "Because this is a hardware store, sir." That's great. Another easy pass, degenerate fight. Yeah, this is definitely a pass from me too, man. I don't have a strong feeling about this one. All right. Great fight here. We got the young Punisher, Pedro Munhoz at minus or at plus 191, squaring off against Kyler the Matrix Phillips, who's a minus 226 favorite. Fight doesn't go to decision here. Big plus money number at plus 200 due to how durable Pedro Munhoz is. So let's get these stats up on the screen. And let's first start talking about the trends for this fight after I get my water. All right. And here we go. The young Punisher isn't so young anymore, ladies and gentlemen. He's 37 years old, and he's been in the UFC for 10 years now. He's 10-8 in the UFC with 2 no contests in that time, and he's 1 win, 3 losses, and a no contest in his last 5 fights. He beat out Guapo Gutierrez 2 fights ago by unanimous decision as a plus 170 underdog, and he lost a unanimous decision last time out against Marlon Vera. Munhoz's last 5 UFC losses came against former champions or guys who fought for the title in Aljamain Sterling, Frankie Edgar, Jose Aldo, Dominic Cruz, and Marlon Vera. So he was having a competitive fight with the current champion, Sean O'Malley, before he got poked in the eye. Kyler Phillips is almost 9 years younger, and he's won 6 of his last 7 fights, with the only loss, a controversial majority decision versus Raulian Paiva that at worst should have been a draw for Phillips. Kyler has UFC wins over Song Yadong and Hani Barcelos, but outside of that, his wins are against bottom-of-the-barrel UFC competition like Gabriel Silva, Cameron Else, and Marcelo Rojo. So Pedro Munhoz is a big step up in competition for Kyler Phillips. Now, Pedro is going to have the overall experience advantage, 17 more fights, 200 more minutes of cage time, 7 more years as a pro fighter, and he's going to have the UFC experience advantage with 14 more fights and 145 more minutes of octagon time. Pedro's got the durability advantage. He has legendary durability, and even though neither guy has ever been finished, Pedro has never been dropped, much less knocked out in 20 UFC fights. And Munhoz has elite Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's a world champion at the black belt level. He's 8 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his pro career, and his guillotine in particular is deadly. Pedro doesn't wrestle much, but he is very good on the ground, and he's just as likely to get the fight to the ground via a takedown, as he has 7 takedowns in his 20 UFC fights, as he is to get it to the ground via a knockdown, where he also has 7 knockdowns as a UFC fighter. And Pedro has fought, beaten, and lost to the more experienced UFC competition with the better win-loss records, and it really isn't even close. So yeah, big step up here for Kyler Phillips. But Phillips is 9 years younger than Pedro. He's 2 inches taller, and this dude's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage. He's more dynamic and diverse as a striker. He's 5-0 to the KO in his career. He's got a 45% career finish rate by knockout, and he has 2 knockdowns in 6 UFC fights and 1 UFC win by way of KO versus Cameron Else. A positive 1.08 distance striking differential is better than Munhoz's at negative 1.04, and a positive 1.7 distance strike attempt differential, also better than Pedro's at minus 2.21. So Kyler is busier at distance. He maintains distance better with his long-range attacks, and he's just as explosive and powerful at range as Pedro is, while having the better distance striking defense. So you could see here that, Kyler is just throwing more, he while his opponents throw less, He's definitely more defensively responsible. And what he does really, really well is use that athleticism of his to explode into range with powerful attacks and then exit on angles so he's not there to be countered. And let's see. Kyler has done a much better job of winning minutes in the UFC with his plus distance striking, takedown, and control time differentials. He's 3-1 to the decision in the UFC, while Munhoz is 4-8 to the decision. And Kyler is the more active minute winner in the grappling exchanges, getting 2.9 takedowns per 15 minutes on 6.2 attempts. His takedown accuracy at 47% and his takedown defense at 70% are both above average for the division, and he outcontrols his opponents 21% to 12%, winning over 63% of the control time positions that his fights are in. And another up-and-coming prospect here in Kyler Phillips, facing off against the more experienced veteran with the superior strength of schedule in Pedro Munhoz. We see this archetype of fight several times on this card. We got about 6 of these types of matchups on this card here at UFC 299. This Kyler Phillips kid is an athletic freak. He glides around the cage. He does a phenomenal job of maintaining distance. He covers ground so fast when he attacks, and he isn't there to be countered. Pedro is going to have a really hard time dealing with the speed, the length, the movement of Phillips, and I see him getting picked apart from the outside. Outside of an opportunistic submission and a scramble or a big bomb landing by Munhoz, I don't see him winning this fight. I don't mind a finish-only prop on Munhoz due to how durable, powerful, and slick of a submission grappler he is. But I do think Kyler circles the cage, picks Pedro apart from the outside, maybe even mixes in a takedown or two to win the minutes of this fight, and that he cruises to a decision victory here. The pick, Kyler the Matrix Phillips, to win by decision over Pedro, the old Punisher Munhoz. We still got 8 fights to break down. Can you believe this? My God. But yeah, Phillips by decision is the pick. And we got Gogo saying Phillips by decision, got it as a parlay piece. And I might be joining you there. And I think Phillips by decision is a pretty good parlay piece to go along with somebody by decision in the next fight. And that might be Mateusz Gamrot. And Paku's saying, I like this fight for Munhoz. I'm going to play the money line. Going to look for a live betting spot for Munhoz too. Yeah, that would be the way I would do it. If Kyler wins the first, they might give us a crazy number. And Kyler is a gasser. He does not get better as the fight goes on. He has a very energy-intensive style. He's very athletic. He's very explosive. He explodes into range, throwing power shots, and he uses a lot of footwork and movement. So he does not really have the conditioning to push that pace for the full 3 rounds. So I think Kyler wins the first round at a very high clip, but then he is going to slow down a little bit. But he's very durable, and he's got a lot of heart too. So I think he'll push through it and find a way to win one of those last 2 rounds. But I agree with you, Paku. I think that's excellent analysis. All right, let's move to the next fight, though, because it's going to be another juice to the tits favorite here, a younger guy in Mateusz Gamrot at minus 455, going up against an ultra veteran in Rafael dos Anjos at plus 355. Fight doesn't go to decision for this fight, plus 215. Let's get these stats up on the screen and talk about the trends. Mateusz Gamrot has won 6 of his last 7 UFC fights. His only UFC losses came against Guram Cutelaba by split decision in his debut and Beneil Dariush by unanimous decision. The quality of his UFC wins over Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman, Jeremy Stevens, Carlos Diego Ferreira, Arman Sarukian, and Jalen Turner on short notice, and Rafael Fiziev are top-notch. Dos Anjos is an ultra veteran, 23 UFC fights since 2013, and he has a mind-blowing 641 minutes of professional cage time. He's still fighting at the high level at the age of 39, but there is a ton of miles on those tires. And Mateusz is 6 years younger and also a very experienced and well-tested fighter. Another fight where we find out if the old lion has one more big win than them before they retire. Now, Gamrot's advantages in this fight, 6 years younger, gotta love that. 2 inches taller is nice. And Gamrot's a durable dude. He's never been finished in 26 professional fights, and he's fought a solid level of competition in the UFC and on the regional scene. Mateusz wrestles nonstop, and it's hard to get this dude to fuck off. Mateusz is attempting 14.2 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he gets 4.36 of them. He outcontrols his opponents 23% to 3%, winning over 88% of the control time positions that his fights are in. You would think Gamrot wins more minutes with his wrestling, but in reality, over 73% of Mateusz Gamrot's UFC octagon time is spent at distance striking range, where he's low volume but efficient with above average accuracy at 47% and solid 62% defense. Now, Dos Anjos, he's got the overall experience advantage, obviously. 21 more pro fights, 320 more minutes of pro cage time in 7 more years as a pro. And in UFC experience since 2013, Rafael has 15 more UFC fights and 290 more minutes in the octagon. And that's just since 2013, because Rafael, I think, made his debut around 2007 in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. And Rafael is also an accomplished minute and moment winner in the grappling exchanges. He's got plus grappling efficiency, averaging 1.73 takedowns per 15 minutes on 5 attempts. His 51% takedown defense is a major hole in his game that Gamrot is going to attempt to exploit. But Dos Anjos is 11 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his 47-fight pro career. So Rafael can handle his business when this fight is on the mat. And Rafael's UFC strength to schedule metric rates better than Gamrot's, even though both guys have fought a solid level of competition. It's Rafael who's fought, beaten, and lost to the more experienced guys with the better win-loss ratios, as Dos Anjos is a former lightweight champion of the UFC back in 2015, 2016. So this is a tough fight to handle from a gambling perspective. Gamrot is a massive favorite at minus 455. Even though he's finished 4 of his 6 wins, that stat is misleading because 2 of those were due to injury. Outside of that, he subbed Jeremy Stevens and he knocked out Scott Holtzman. Gamrot is not knocking out Dos Anjos, and Rafi has never been subbed. So I see Gamrot by decision as his most likely path. Gamrot isn't this lockdown wrestler either. So it's unreasonable for him to cover that minus 455 price tag should I be right about this fight going the full 15. I don't want to take the underdog shot on a 39-year-old fighter who has over 640 minutes of career cage time. If this fight goes the distance, right, that will mean Rafael Dos Anjos' pro MMA career will have spanned almost 11 hours of professional cage time. The wheels are going to fall off soon, no doubt. And laying minus 455 on a guy like Gamrot, who rarely puts a stamp on fights against a well-rounded and well-tested veteran like RDA, that feels like a bad idea too. I think Gamrot by decision at minus 145 is the best play here, and I'm going to pick Mateusz Gamrot to win this fight by decision. So Gamer Gamrot by decision is the pick for this fight. All right, let's move on to the next one, as we've got Katlyn Chookagian, who is now known as Katlyn Cerminara, at plus 178, going up against Maycee, the future Barber, at minus 208. The fight doesn't go to decision here. Pretty fat plus money number for a fight that's got a finisher in Barber involved in it at plus 250 for this fight. So the trends have Katlyn Chookagian winning 4 of her last 5 fights. She was on a 4-fight winning streak against Cynthia Calvillo, Viviane Araújo, Jennifer Maia, and Amanda Ribas, all by decision, before losing a 29-28 unanimous decision to Manon Fiorot back in October of 2022. She's on a 16-month layoff now and has had no fights scheduled in that time. Maycee Barber suffered the first loss of her pro MMA career back in 2020 to Roxanne Modafferi after tearing her ACL in the first minute of that fight. She took over a year off, came back against current flyweight champion Alexa Grasso. She lost a 29-28 unanimous decision. And since then, she's been on a 5-fight winning streak with 4 decision wins against Miranda Maverick, Montana De La Rosa, Jessica I, and Andrea KJB Lee, and she's got a second-round knockout win over Amanda Ribas. Barber barely cashed as a -210 favorite versus Lee 2 fights ago and came through as a +160 underdog versus Amanda Ribas. Now, Cerminara lost as a big underdog to Fierro and cashed at -185 versus Ribas and -210 versus Jennifer Maia. Now, Katlyn Cerminara is going to be the much bigger flyweight in this matchup. 4 inches taller with a 3-inch reach advantage. And she's got the overall experience advantage over Maycee with 8 more professional fights and 150 more minutes of cage time in 3 more years as a professional mixed martial artist. And she's also got the UFC experience advantage, does Katlyn, with 6 more fights compared to Maycee and 110 more minutes of octagon time. And Katlyn's an excellent minute winner in the striking exchanges. She uses her length well. She stays busy, attempting 4.2 more distance strikes per minute than Maycee Barber does, and she throws straight punches and maintains range with her kicks. She stays busy, attempting over 16 distance strikes per minute, and around 78% of her UFC cage time is spent at distance striking range, where she does her best work using her natural gifts of height and length, along with her natural and technical kickboxing. And then Katlyn has fought the slightly more experienced competition with the better win-loss ratios overall at the UFC level in comparison to Maycee. Now, Maycee, she's 9 years younger than Katlyn, and she's a switch stance fighter going up against an orthodox fighter here in Katlyn. And Maycee's the much more dangerous finisher, both as a pro, as Maycee's got a 61% finish rate compared to only a 17% finish rate for Cerminara, and in the UFC, she's got a better finish rate at 50%, where Katlyn, who has 11 wins, has literally 0 finishes in those 11 wins. Maycee's 6 wins and 0 losses to the knockout, while Katlyn is 2-2 to the knockout. So I'd also have to give a significant durability advantage to Maycee Barber here as well. And Maycee doesn't have the best minute-winning capabilities at distance striking range, but her distance striking differential is on par with Katlyn's at positive 0.26, as is her distance defense at 64.5%. Where Maycee really does her best striking is in the clinch, where she's landing 4.2 clinch and ground strikes per minute spent in control time positions, and she's got a positive 2.71 clinch and ground striking differential. Maycee is so mean when she gets in close. She throws nasty elbows and knees and showing off her dominance in the dirty boxing exchanges. That is probably how Barber deals with Katlyn's length. She doesn't have to worry about Katlyn's power, so just march her way into the clinch and be the meaner, dirtier, nastier fighter. It's an interesting stylistic matchup. You have the older fighter in Cerminara who uses her length well, stays busy on the outside, and wins the minutes of distance striking battles, versus the younger, shorter, but meaner girl who does her best work when she's pressuring forward into the pocket and in the clinch. Barber is more powerful. Cerminara is more technical. Neither lady wrestles much, as Barber gets 1.03 takedowns per 15 minutes and Katlyn only gets 0.27. So I see this fight mostly taking place at distance and in the clinch. Barber's fights are at distance only 45% of her octagon time, and for Katlyn, it's 78%. So the crux of this stylistic matchup is whether Katlyn can maintain distance and win the minutes, or whether Barber can get in the pocket and use her power hooks and elbows to land the more impactful shots. After watching how Cerminara struggled with the similar archetype of fighter in Jessica Andrade, I do have to go with the younger, meaner, and more powerful fighter here in Barber to implement her game plan successfully. Katlyn doesn't have the kind of power at range to get Maycee's respect, so I don't see Maycee having problems closing the distance and making this her kind of fight. I feel as if a Barber finish only prop, as juiced to the tits as it is, could be a very dependable parlay piece this week. I do think Maycee wins this fight, but I'm kind of torn as to whether she gets a finish or just wins a decision. But I am going to pick Maycee Barber to win this fight by decision. I think Katlyn, while she has been finished twice, is still a fairly durable girl, and one of them was to the body, and it was Jessica Andrade. So yeah, we're gonna pick Maycee, the future Barber, here to win this fight by decision. All right, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We've got yeah, I agree. Easy pass. You can't lay chalk on Gamrot. It's way too risky. He doesn't really put a stamp on fights either. And a couple of those finishes, are injuries. They're not really finishes. So yeah, man. I don't think it's smart to do that. And I don't also think that, like, as much value as there is on the Dos Anjos side, this guy's 39, man. 640 minutes of cage time. So it's a lot. Fubu played Munhoz at plus 200. That's a pretty good number. It's better than where it's at right now, I think. Paku saying, I really like Gamrot's striking in the Fiziev fight. It looks like it has improved a lot, and he was hanging with Fiziev in the striking. I really like Gamrot here. Parlays, he says. And Gogo saying, Pierre, agree to disagree. RDA is pushing 40 and finish at the top level. Yeah, that's for sure. I agree with that too. You just can't be a top level fighter when you're 39, man. It's just, unless you're just a total physical freak. I don't see how you do that. All right. Next fight though, it's going to be a really interesting one here. We got the wrestler in Curtis Blaydes at minus 113 versus the grappler in Jailton Almeida at minus 107. The fight doesn't go to decision here, sitting at minus 230. So let's get these stats up on the screen. There are some interesting ones for this one. And get some water here. We got 69 of you guys hanging out live in here. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. Please consider joining, subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the great content that's going to be coming up here. And definitely leave me a comment down below and consider joining the Patreon if you want to financially support the work that I do. It'll give you access to these phenomenal stats that you see here for free every week on Just a Tip, but you're also going to get access to the prop template and to all the stuff that you can't really read very well on the screen that will help you do much better research and consider all the available angles of a matchup here, which my stats can put side by side for you so that you can come to the decisions much easier. So please consider joining the Patreon to support the work. And let's first start talking about the trends for this fight. So Blaydes has won 7 of his last 9 UFC fights and in 3 of his last 5. He's coming off a brutal first-round KO loss to Sergey Pavlovich almost a year ago. Curtis is a wrestler who seems to have fallen in love with his hands lately, and it certainly didn't work well for him against Pavlovich. Almeida is on fire right now. He's on a 15-fight winning streak. He's 6-0 in the UFC with 5 finishes, and he's absorbed a grand total of 22 strikes in 6 UFC fights. To say he's been dominant thus far would be an understatement. Now, Curtis Blaydes is 1 inch taller, and he's going to have a 1 inch reach advantage. He's the more natural heavyweight here, while Jailton Almeida is really more of a natural 205er. Curtis has the pro experience advantage with 70 more minutes of cage time. He's got the UFC experience advantage with 11 more fights, 110 more minutes of octagon time. And Curtis is the cleaner, the crisper, and the more dangerous distance striker. He's got top-notch wrestling, 5.93 takedowns per 15 minutes, 53% accuracy, 51% control time for, and only 2% control time allowed. He's winning 97% almost of the control time positions that his fights are in. And he's also got the UFC strength to schedule advantage. As you can see, a 1.2 ratio of Jailton Almeida's competition, career records of 36 and 30 at the UFC level, while for Blaydes, it's 135 and 78. A little more experience, but much better win-loss ratios, the guys that Curtis Blaydes has fought. And but Jailton Almeida is going to be the more opportunistic finisher. He's finished 19 of his 20 pro wins inside the distance. That's 12 submissions and 7 knockouts. And the only one he didn't finish was a 5-round fight against Derek Lewis, where he could have finished it whenever he wanted to, but it looked like he was trying to win by decision on purpose to prove a point. Jailton's going to be the better athlete here. He's faster and he's more explosive than Curtis Blaydes. And it's the relentless pressure in the grappling game for Jailton Almeida that makes him such a difficult opponent to deal with. He's getting 4.94 takedowns per 15 minutes on 8.95 attempts. He's got 55% takedown accuracy, which is phenomenal. He's got 100% takedown defense, and 91% of his UFC octagon time is spent in control time positions. 91%, you guys. This guy has only spent 9% of those 48 minutes of UFC octagon time at distance striking range. So Jailton's winning 98% of that 91% of his fights that are taking place in control time positions. Even though this guy is a natural 205er, he picks up heavyweights and throws them around like it's nothing. I've never seen this kind of grappling dominance in the heavyweight division ever. In Jailton's first 5 UFC fights, he landed 114 significant strikes and he absorbed 2. His combination of pressure, wrestling, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is incredible. This is a grappler's delight. Blaydes is easily the best wrestler / grappler that Jailton has faced thus far in the UFC. Will Jailton be able to take Blaydes down? What happens if Blaydes takes Jailton down? Can he keep him there? Can he land ground and pound? I think Blaydes has a lot of advantages on paper, being the more natural heavyweight, being more experienced at the UFC level, and having fought the better level of competition. And we know he's elite in the wrestling, just like Jailton is. So if the wrestling is a wash, then I think Blaydes should win this fight due to the fact that he's shown some really nice striking that we really haven't seen out of Jailton Almeida yet. If Jailton is better and more dangerous on the mat, like I think he is, then I think he makes this look at almost as easy as he's looked in his other fights. And the fact is, wrestlers like Blaydes almost never look good off their backs. And Jailton's top game is God tier. I think Jailton is special. I think he could potentially wear gold in this division and at 205 pounds. And I think he shows out on Saturday and takes the next step towards greatness. I'm picking Jailton to finish this fight on the mat in the second round via rear naked choke. I'm picking Jailton Almeida by submission in round number 2 over the Chicago native, Curtis Blaydes, Harper College, stand up. The Harvard of the Midwest, Northern Illinois University, stand up. Curtis Blaydes making the Chicago local folks proud with his phenomenal wrestling and great fighting style here at the UFC level, but he is fighting a god-tier grappler in Jailton Almeida, and I think Jailton's going to get the job done here and do to Blaydes what he's done to everybody else, which is just dominate and make it look easy. Let's see what you guys in the chat are saying. Am I crazy? Am I crazy about that? We got Ty Bets in the room saying, yo, what is up, Ty? Thank you for hanging out with us here. We got Pierre saying, bro, I think Gamrot wins, but not at minus 450. Yeah, I hear you. I'm picking him to win too, but minus 450 is a bit nuts. Matt Chalk saying, I love Blaydes here. Blaydes will force Jailton to stand and piece him up. Well, if he can keep this fight standing, he's going to win. That's for sure. I laid almost 50% of my bankroll on Almeida at plus 110. This is one of those rare spots you have to capitalize on heavy, around $4,500. So, Pierre, I would never, ever suggest that anybody lays that big of a chunk of their bankroll on one fight, because just about anything can happen in the UFC. I agree with you, though. I think getting a guy like Jailton Almeida, who is barely even lost a second in the UFC cage thus far at even money against a guy who's displayed some pretty bad fucking fight IQ in the past, I think is a huge discount. But there are a lot of ways that I just discussed that Curtis Blaydes is very live in this fight. You know, he could get takedowns and put Jailton on his back. He could stuff the takedowns and keep this thing standing. You know, there's a number of different ways that Blaydes can win this. He can knock him out on the feet too. Pierre might just pay off. It might, man. Paku saying your breakdown's about to make me pick flip. So convincing. I was thinking Almeida wouldn't be able to take Blaydes take down Blaydes very easily, and we would see a striking match. But the thing about that, Paku, is that Jailton at no point in this fight is going to settle for a striking match. This guy's going to keep attempting takedowns until he either exhausts or until Blaydes elbows his head like Travis Brown into oblivion, or until he gets him down. And I think all he needs to do is get him down once, because Jailton Almeida is that good on the mat. So it's a very interesting fight. Only on a card this stacked would we ever get this high level of a fight as a prelim. We should be thankful to be UFC fans this week. Uncle's ass shaving of the week, so early of the show. And he is underdog too. Bootsy Memorial as well. We'll see what happens, Justin. Blaydes got good wrestling, but not the best takedown defense. He's going to have excellent takedown defense on Saturday to win this one. He's the new juiced Fabricio Verdum. Yeah, he's Fabricio Verdum with more cardio and better wrestling, I think. But not as good as striking as Fabricio, because Fabricio had some pretty good striking. Remember, he knocked out, didn't he knock out, was it Stipe to win the championship, or was it Stipe that knocked him out? But I know when Verdum won the championship, he knocked his opponent out. It might have been Kane. I forget, though. Victor De Jesus saying Almeida is lightning fast. I see no problem with him taking Blaydes down. I don't mind the under 1.5, Benito. It is plus money, and Jailton is that dominant. And if Jailton doesn't get the takedowns, Blaydes might knock this dude out. So I don't mind the under 1.5 here. Good luck, Pierre. You got balls. Yes, sir. Remember when Shamil dropped Jailton? Yeah, I remember that. And then what happened? Yeah, he did kind of clip him a little bit, though. Shamil clipped him with the very first punch that he threw. It landed, and it had Jailton off balance, and I think his ass did hit the ground. I don't know if they counted that as a knockdown or not, but it was the first punch that Shamil threw. Let's see. Lots of those decision wins Curtis got were only edged him because of the takedowns he landed. Don't see him going for takedowns here, let alone getting them. Yeah, I don't think he should try to wrestle offensively against Almeida, because I think he can get reversed. Almeida's a phenomenal athlete, very strong and very explosive. But let's move on to this next fight. We've got Peter Yan at minus 110 going up against Song Yadong. Pick'em fight here. Fight doesn't go to decision at plus 195 because people are counting on really good durability here out of both guys. So let's get these stats up here on the screen for you guys. And Yan Yadong, a great bantamweight matchup here. So on March 6th, 2021, Peter Yan was about 5 minutes and 31 seconds away from being the bantamweight champion of the UFC. He was beating 7 shades of shit out of Aljamain Sterling. He landed an illegal knee. Acting job ensues, and next thing you know, it's almost March 9th, 3 years later, and Peter has lost 4 of his last 5 fights, and he's on a 3-fight losing streak. He blew it as a minus 450 favorite in the Aljamain Sterling rematch. He blew it as a minus 280 favorite in the Sugar Sean fight, and he got dominated as a minus 275 favorite against Merab Dvalishvili. Now he's around a pick'em versus Song Yadong, who's won 5 of his last 6 fights, and he's currently on a 2-fight winning streak versus Ricky Simone and Chris El Guapo Gutierrez. His last loss came due to a cut stoppage versus Corey Sandhagen, and Song's last 3 fights have been 5-round main events. We have a 3-round fight this time around, and Yan is known to be a bit of a slow starter, so that needs to be taken into account here. Peter Yan's advantages. He's a switch stance fighter versus an orthodox. He's got 35 more minutes of UFC octagon time. I rate Yan as the more technical striker. He's the slightly better minute and moment winner at range. He's landed 10 UFC knockdowns, and he's only absorbed 1. And he's 47% accurate at distance, has 61% defense, and a 1.39% distance knockdown percentage. Yan is 7 wins and 0 losses to the knockout in his career, and he's 4-0 to the KO in the UFC. Yan is probably the more likely guy to win minutes with his wrestling. He gets 1.71 takedowns per 15 minutes on 3.27 attempts, and he wins over 56% of the control time positions his fights have been in, despite only attempting 44 takedowns and having 120 attempted against him. Once Peter gets you down, he does excellent work, landing 5.41 clinch and ground strikes per minute while absorbing only 1.81. Peter is active with his offensive wrestling. He's got 85% takedown defense and excellent ground and pound once he gets into dominant positions. And Peter Yan has fought, beaten, and lost to the more experienced UFC competition with the better win-loss record. So I'm giving Yan the strength of schedule advantage here too. Now, Song Yadong is 5 years younger on paper, and he is 1 inch taller than Peter Yan. The overall experience advantage goes to Song with 9 more fights than Peter and 15 more minutes of pro cage time. Song actually has the better distance striking differential compared to Yan. It's positive 0.41 for Song, negative 0.28 for Yan, which is surprising. And he throws about 1.3 more distance strike attempts per minute than his opponents do, while Yan attempts about 3.05 less than his opponents do. So Song tends to be the busier striker at range. And Song also has good power on the feet. He's landed 7 UFC knockdowns and absorbed 0. He's got a 1.16 distance knockdown percentage, and he's 5 wins and 1 loss to the knockout in his UFC career, with the only loss being a cut stoppage. Song has above average takedown defense and an excellent get-up game. He attempted 18 of the total takedowns in his fight, and he got 33% of the total, but he wins over 60% of the control time positions in his fights. So he's hard to take down and keep down. And when he gets you down, he's got a positive 1.37 control time striking differential. Song is not a busy offensive grappler, but he's extremely efficient at keeping fights standing when he wants to strike and wrestling successfully when he wants to grapple. So I think the bookies have this one right. They have Yan as the slightest of favorites, and I tend to agree. Both of these guys are hard as fuck to take down and hold down. So I see this fight taking place on the feet, and both of these guys are so technical, powerful, and skilled. Yan has fought the better brand of competition, and he's arguably won every fight that he lost besides the Moroz fight. And Song fights nothing like Moroz Dvalishvili. This one comes down to who does the better work at range and who lands the bigger shots. And I'm leaning ever so slightly towards Yan. And since the bookies agree, I don't see much of an edge. I'm going to pick Peter Yan to win this fight by decision. However, Yan by decision, even though this is a pick'em, right? Yan by decision on Bet Online is plus 135, and Song by decision is plus 200. And since Yan is a bit of a slow starter, and Song overall has more output and similar power, I feel as if Song by decision at plus 200 is a very interesting potential bet here. I think that's underpriced. My favorite bet is Song to win by decision, but the official pick is actually going to be Peter Yan to win this fight by decision. But I just think there's a lot more. I think this fight goes the full 15, and I think there's a lot more value on that Song decision prop at plus 200 than the Yan decision prop at plus 135, especially because Yan has lost a lot of close decisions. You know, he didn't get the second Aljamain Sterling fight to go his way. He didn't get he had the illegal knee, and then there was the Sean O'Malley fight. That was a very close fight that could have went his way as well. So the judges kind of love screwing over Peter Yan when it gets to decisions. So I don't understand why the Song Yadong decision prop is so much cheaper than the Yan decision prop. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Yeah, you're saying, I mean, like, he got landed on good. Shamil did land a big shot. First one he landed, Martin, but I don't remember whether it put him on his ass or not, but he definitely landed one good one. He got one good one in. Stipe knocked out Verdum going backwards. All right, so then it was Verdum then who knocked out, I think, Cain Velasquez in order to win the title. There you go, Ben. Thank you for the heads up there. We got Tai saying, does this guy read chat, or LOL. All right. We got Drunken Boxing saying what's up. I'm on my phone. What's that say on the screen? That's a lot of numbers there. I'm leaning Jan, says Drunken Boxing. I'm leaning Jan that way. I'm leaning that way too. Jan by decision, no doubt, says Pierre. I like that. Paku saying, I wish my sportsbook offered me a split decision prop. Yeah, that could be interesting. The split decision props on Bet Online right now for this fight. Jan by split plus 500, Yadong by split plus 600. So they're not very fat. Coin toss, I think I picked Song on Tapology before tape study. It's a close one. It's a very close fight. It could go either way. It's kind of hard to have a passionate take on either side because these guys are so well matched. All right, let's move on to the next fight, though. It is going to be Gilbert Durinho Burns at minus 142, squaring off against Jack Della Maddalena, the minus 162 favorite. Fight doesn't go to decision here, juiced up to minus 200, about a 67% implied probability. Let's get the stats up on the screen. And let's talk about the trends for this fight. Now, Gilbert Burns is 7-3 in his last 10 fights since making the move from lightweight up to welterweight. He's 3-3 in his last 6, with the 3 losses coming against top 5 welterweights in Kamaru Usman, former champion, Khamzat Chimaev, and Belal Muhammad, probably next in line for the championship shot. The 3 wins come by first round sub versus Neil Magny, and he's got 2 unanimous decision wins against former title challenger Jorge Masvidal and another former title challenger in Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Gilbert's coming off a 5-round decision loss to Belal Muhammad in May of 2023. So he's on a 10-month layoff right now, but it needs to be noted that Burns took that Muhammad fight on less than 1 month after he beat Masvidal. So it was a very fast turnaround for Gilbert in his last fight. And now he's on a long layoff. So he should be fresh and ready to go for this matchup. Jack Della is on a 16-fight winning streak at the moment. And he's off to a 6-0 start in the UFC. He started off his UFC wins with 4 consecutive first-round finishes versus Pete Dead Game Rodriguez, Ramazan Ameev, Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts, and Randy Rude Boy Brown. And his last 2 wins were very close split decision wins over a short notice replacement in Basel Hafez, and a split decision win as well over Kevin Holland his last time out. On paper, this appears to be a striker versus grappler matchup. Maddalena was a minus 150 favorite in his last fight versus Holland, and he was a massive minus 575 favorite versus Basel Hafez. Burns, he underperformed as a minus 150 favorite versus Belal Muhammad, and he covered his minus 450 price tag before that versus Jorge Masvidal. Currently, Jack Della Maddalena around a minus 160 favorite here versus Burns. Now, Gilbert Burns has the overall experience advantage with 10 more fights, 150 more minutes of cage time in 4 more years as a pro fighter. He's got the UFC experience advantage as well, with 15 more fights at the UFC level and 210 more minutes in the UFC octagon. And Gilbert's a world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. 9 wins and 0 losses to the submission as a professional, while Jack is 2 wins and 1 loss to the sub. So the grappling game is where Burns has the biggest advantage in this matchup. 1.95 takedowns per 15 minutes on 5.43 attempts. Gilbert outcontrols his opponents 24% to 10%, winning over 70% of the control time positions in his fights. And Gilbert's definitely fought the much better level of competition at the UFC level with the better win-loss records. Look at the last 5 fights for each guy, and it's painfully evident how huge of a step up this is in competition for Jack. As Jack's last 5 fights, Ramazan Ameev, Danny Roberts, Randy Brown, Basil Hafez, and Kevin Holland, while for Gilbert Burns, it's Wonderboy Thompson, Khamzat, Magny, Masvidal, and Belal Muhammad. Now, Jack Della Maddalena is 10 years younger than Gilbert Burns. That's huge. He's 1 inch taller, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's a switch stance fighter versus an orthodox, which is also an advantage on paper. And Jack has significant measurables advantage in this matchup. And Jack has been the more prolific finisher as a pro. He's got an 82% finish rate compared to 68% for Burns. And in the UFC, he's finishing 67% of his wins, while for Burns, it's 53%. Jack is 11-1 to the KO. He's 2-1 to the submission, and he's 3-0 to the decision. So obviously the stand-up game is where he's doing his best job of winning minutes and moments. And Jack's UFC distance striking metrics are phenomenal. He has a positive 1.62 distance striking differential with way above average 52% accuracy, impregnable 69% distance striking defense, and his distance knockdown percentage at 2.08% is elite. 5 UFC knockdowns in only 6 fights, and 3 of his 6 UFC wins come by way of knockout. And his submission win over Randy Rude Boy Brown came as a result of a big right hook that put Brown on a stanky leg and then dropped him. Allowed Jack to get his back and sink in that rear naked choke. Jack attempts 5.05 less distance strikes per minute than his opponents do, but somehow he manages to land 1.62 more than his opponents do per minute. He's efficient. He's fast. He switches stances and he mixes up his weapons well. He digs to the body, which I love, and he lands 7.8 distance strikes per minute spent at distance. That's 3.35 more than the divisional average, and he has a ton of power in both hands. Jack needs to keep this fight standing, and if he does, he's going to have a big advantage here. And when Jack starts to pressure and get his opponents on the back foot is when he becomes extremely dangerous. Now, this is a classic striker versus grappler matchup, and yet another old lion versus young prospect matchup on this card. Jack is much better on the feet at distance than Burns, and Burns has a huge advantage if he can get this fight to the mat and work to dominant positions. If Jack makes any of the fight IQ errors he made in the Hafez fight, he is going to piss this fight away. He cannot afford to let Burns take him down and get to a dominant position because Gilbert has the necessary chops to finish with submissions against grapplers at Jack's level. Jack is 10 years younger, 1 inch taller. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage. He switches stances. His boxing is fast, technical, clean, and powerful. The way he works the body is absolutely beautiful, and he has serious power in both hands. Burns would need a miracle at 37 years of age to win minutes or moments on the feet against Jack Della. In Burns' 3 losses at 170 pounds, he's 0 of 12 on his takedown attempts, and he only managed 6 seconds of control time in those 3 losses. Burns got takedowns in 6 of his 7 UFC wins, though, at 170 pounds. He was 14 for 31 on his takedown attempts. That's 45% in those fights. And he controlled his opponents for 35% of the octagon time in those 7 wins. So the stats are telling us that Burns' win condition is closely correlated with his ability to get takedowns and accrue top control. Basil Hafez managed 45% control time versus Jack on 20 takedown attempts, but Jack put himself on his back 2 or 3 times with dumbass guillotine attempts. This fight comes down to whether you think Burns can get takedowns and then keep Jack down. If yes, he probably wins by submission or decision. And if not, Jack probably wins by knockout or decision. This is probably going to be a greasy fight. Jack isn't the kind of striker that picks and pokes from the outside and outpoints you. He gets in the pocket, slips and rips, and goes hard at multiple targets to the body and head. He's going to give Gilbert opportunities to clinch up and go for takedown attempts, and it will be so important for Jack to defend those successfully and do damage when he exits. Burns by sub at plus 380 and his decision prop at plus 450 are probably pretty interesting lines here. I think those will be the best ways to play the Burns side. And Jack Della at minus 162 is going to look like a massive bargain if he can keep this fight standing. I'm going to pick Jack Della to win this fight by a close decision. I think Burns is going to aggressively go for takedowns, but he's not an elite or a high-volume wrestler. So I see Jack managing to stay safe, work back to his feet when he does get taken down, and not let Burns get to dominant positions, because he'll be prepared for Gilbert's wrestling here. He knows Gilbert's going to wrestle. If he does that, he will land the more impactful shots on the feet, and I think he'll win this one by decision. So that's going to be the pick. It's going to be Jack Della to win this fight by decision. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Wow, ton of comments. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Verdum Gilead Kane in Mexico City. That's right. Kane got tired in Mexico City. That's right. Thank you. We got Victor saying there's no need to bet on this fight. This is an amazing fight to sit back, drink a cold beer, and enjoy the beautiful violence. Yeah, I've got no money on this fight either, and I do agree with you, Vic. Yard versus Song. We got Jan versus Song. He's saying Jack by KO. Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good spot. I like Jan, but probably no bet, says Tai. We got Drunken Boxing saying, let's go. We got Fubu saying he played Jack at plus 120 about 10 days ago. That's a great price. Easy Bet saying, what's up? Got caught rewatching The Dictator, but we're in for a great fight week. Yes, we are. And Tai Bet saying, Song has worst losses. UFC keeps pushing him for some reason. Drunken saying, also well matched up, Burns versus Della. Yeah, that's true. Fubu saying, I think Song versus Jan is the perfect fight to make for both men. That Chinese market, says Drunken Boxing. Pierre saying Jack should win. His grappling is very underrated. Pacu saying agree, Pierre. Benino saying he got in that Jack at plus 120, favorite bet this week. That's a great line. We got Joshua saying young Weezy. What's up, Josh? Good to see you hanging out in here. We got Fubu saying I give Jack a pass on the Hafez fight. He made weight twice in 7 days for that fight. Yeah, but he made a lot of dumb mistakes too, Fubu. If he pulls guillotine against Gilbert Burns and gets put on his back, he's getting arm triangled. So he's got to make better decisions. I don't necessarily mind that Hafez got a couple of takedowns and was just grinding on him, because Jack's takedown defense actually held up pretty well in that fight. It was him putting himself in bad positions that really worried me. Fubu saying, I think Hafez will do well in the UFC. Yeah, I think he will too, man. He's a strong dude. Doesn't really matter. Jack won't pull those chokes again. Jack will knock him out the same way like Dan Hooker finished Burns. Don't forget. Jack will knock him out. Don't think it's a decision. We got Sammy Malcolm in the room saying, oi, what's up, Sammy? We got Joshua saying exactly. Sammy saying flinch guy on the other show said Gilbert will wrestle like the Arab guy who trains with them, but with a lot more success. Thoughts? Yeah, I think Gilbert's going to wrestle as a lot, because it just doesn't make any sense for him to voluntarily stand at range with a striker the quality of Jack Della. We got Gogo agrees with Victor here. We got Camden Dusenberry saying, do you have your ass shaving of the week yet? It's gonna be coming up shortly. And Pavel saying Song versus Jan. Song is nowhere near the level. Jan is better everywhere. There isn't even a question. Song only has beaten one really good dude. Yeah, and it was he beat Simon, he beat Gutierrez, and he's got that really good fight against Kyler Phillips. Yeah, man. All right, you guys, but let's move on to the next fight. 88 of you hanging out in here live. We got 3 fights left to break down on this card, and we're going to first start talking here about Michael Venom Page, who's making his UFC debut, his long-awaited UFC debut after being a Bellator lifer. He's squaring off against Kevin Holland, the minus 131 favorite. Page on the comeback, plus 111 is the underdog. Fight doesn't go to decision here at plus money, plus 120 for this fight. So let's get these stats up here. Let me wet my whistle a little bit. Let's break down this fight. So Kevin Holland has a 4-3 record in the UFC at 170 pounds. Now he moved down from 185 to 170, and he's won 2 of his last 3, with his last fight being a close split decision loss to Jack Della Maddalena. His 3 losses at 170 came against Maddalena, Wonderboy Thompson, and Himaev. So he's only losing to the best guys in the division. MVP will be making his UFC debut on Saturday after going 18-2 as a pro. He's won 7 of his last 8 fights, with the only loss being a split decision against Logan Storley. This is a striker versus striker matchup. Both guys are pretty hot right now, and it promises to be a fan favorite. Now, Kevin Holland's 5.5 years younger, 1 inch taller, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. Page is used to being the taller and longer guy, but that's not going to be the case on Saturday. Kevin's got the overall experience advantage with 13 more fights, 160 more minutes of cage time in 3 less years as a pro. So Kevin's been the more active fighter, finding a mind-blowing 4 times a year Kevin Holland fights on average over his professional career, while for Page, it's about 2 times a year. So Kevin Holland, 5.5 years younger, and also significantly more experienced overall, and at the UFC level, where he's got 20 more professional fights, 215 more minutes of cage time at the UFC level than Page, who's making his debut. Kevin's got the better finish rate as a pro, 84% finish rate in 25 pro wins. He's got 7 submissions and 14 knockouts, while it's a 76% finish rate for Page, and it's almost all by KO. 13 KOs, 3 submissions for Page. Holland's more durable. I mean, he's a very durable guy. He's got a solid chin on him. While I don't think we've seen Page have his chin tested to the limits that Holland's has. And we've seen Page get knocked out before by Lima. And Holland has an excellent UFC striking metrics against top-notch competition. 1.66 distance striking differential, 45% accuracy, 5 knockdowns in 20 fights, never been dropped, 14-1 to the KO as a pro, and 6-1 in the UFC. And Holland has the better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game and has above average grappling efficiency numbers at the UFC level. And Holland has fought, beaten, and lost to the much better level of competition over his pro and UFC careers. Now, Michael Venom Page is a switch stance fighter with a Taekwondo base. He has a bladed stance. He keeps his hands very low, and he loves to try to catch you coming in, trying to close distance. A very unusual style of fighter to deal with. MVP is 13-1 to the knockout in his pro career. This guy is slick, fast, and unusual. Explosive techniques with lots of flash and power. This is going to be a similar fight to the Thompson fight for Holland, but I'm not sure if Page has ever squared off against a striker the length and the quality of Kevin Holland before. And Page's low volume, high precision striking style works well for him in terms of winning minutes. He's 5-1 to the decision as a pro, so his grappling defense is usually good enough to keep fights standing, where he does his best work. And when he's at distance, he usually lands the more eye-catching and powerful shots, and definitely slows down the output of his opponents. This is perfect matchmaking. MVP making his UFC debut at almost 37 years of age. At this point, he's probably not making a title run, so the best option is to give him exciting fights against the right opponents that will let Page show off his best skills in the cage. And Kevin Holland is the perfect opponent to let Page show his stuff. Kevin had Wonderboy Thompson down twice in their fight, and he immediately led him back to his feet both times so the fans would get the show they wanted. Bad for Holland bettors, good for the fans. This is going to be a fan-friendly striker versus striker matchup. On the Holland side, I like the youth. I like the height. I like the length. I like the experience overall and in the UFC. The well-rounded skill set, the durability, the confidence that Holland has, and the grappling and strength of schedule advantages. On the Page side, we know he's going to get the fight that he wants. A distance striking match where he can show the best side of his MMA skill set, his flashy and precise distance striking. I'm interested to see how Page deals with the length of Holland. I don't think Kevin has to do anything risky to close distance here, so I think he's just as likely to win minutes at range as Page is. Kevin is definitely the more active fighter at range because Page is extremely low volume. Kevin has displayed fantastic durability, so I don't see Page knocking him out. So I see this one either being a Holland finish or a Holland decision, and I'm going to pick Kevin Holland to win this fight by decision. All right, there we go. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Song's got that dog in him, but not what you guys think. He's got heart, not a meal. I hear you. Pavel's saying, I viewed tape of Page last fight at bare knuckle. He's chinny. His chin is not good after a loss of cardio. If Kevin Holland touches him, he will knock him out. I really do believe Holland. I got MVP finishing a D-Gen 5 legger. We just saw this fight with Wonder Boy, and Holland has low fight IQ and will stand up. Yes, agree with that. He's going to stand with him. Is more durable and hits harder. I think that you're talking about Holland. Holland too untrustworthy to play my cash. I hear you. Song do and would hurt to see Jan lose. Yeah. I got Holland, says Joshua. Pavel says, don't worry. Holland will finish him. Page has lost to every good opponent, and he's beaten only mid-year fighters. Yeah. Drunken Boxing saying he parlayed Della and Barber. Okay. Pierre saying, I watched both their interviews, and it feels like Holland was brought in to lose. You never know, man. Fubu, I think MVP as an adamantium skeleton. I don't know what that means, but that dude is weird. I mean, like, he's explosive. Page got dropped and hurt early in a bare knuckle fight. Not a good look. Even though I pick him, he loses, he wins. Just don't trust Page. Yeah. MVP is a much better striker, says Pierre. I got MVP KO, and this is coming from a Holland fan. Love the trash talk. Keeping your hands low against Holland is not good. I hear you, man. He keeps them so low. Sammy saying Holland is definitely the better fighter, and I think that this is not short notice in welterweight, so we know he's serious. MVP KO. Holland never been dropped. Even Jack couldn't stop him. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna knock out Holland. I like the Holland finish only prop. It better than minus 200. Pavel's saying Holland by KO round or 2 or 3. And Page does slow down later on in fights. Page is very front loaded. Page can roll well with punches. MVP had 3 options and picked Holland 4 for a reason. Yeah. Pierre, MVP has more to prove. I like him at dog odds. Page got a bad chin. Look at his bare knuckle fight, and he was gassing. Perry knocks people flat. That's not a bad chin. Same, says Joshua. Bruno saying both fighters like to showboat to the crowd. I could see this going to the scorecards and the judging having no idea. Yeah, I hear you, man. I learned the hard way not to put any money on Kevin Holland fights for or against. I love him to death, but too unreliable. I hear you, man. MVP drops him and Green ground and pound and Herb early stoppage. And saying he got more Marvel Wolverine body. Okay. And Go saying Holland is to hit and miss to bet in this fight anyway. I hear you, man. All right, let's move on to this next one. It is the co-main event, and it's going to be Dustin the Diamond Poirier at plus 180 going up against Benoit Saint-Denis at minus 210. The fight doesn't go to decision here. Juice to the tits at minus 550. What a fight this is. Now, Dustin Poirier is coming into this fight having lost 2 of his last 3, while Benoit Saint-Denis on a 5-fight winning streak. Poirier is 13-4-1 no contest as a lightweight, with his only losses at lightweight coming to top-notch guys like Khabib Nurmagomedov, champion, Charles Oliveira, champion, Justin Gaethje, top 5 guy, and he got knocked out by Michael Johnson a while back. BSD is a really intriguing prospect who's 13-1 as a pro, with his only pro loss coming in his UFC debut up a weight class against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, where he showed incredible durability and heart in a brutal decision loss where the fight should have been stopped several times in the second round. One of many hot up-and-coming prospect versus old lion of the division matchups on this card. There could be a changing of the guard in the UFC lightweight division if Saint-Denis wins this fight. Now, Dustin Poirier is going to have the overall experience advantage with 23 more pro fights, 235 more minutes of cage time, and 10 more years as a pro. He's also got the UFC experience advantage. Since 2013, he's got 17 more UFC fights and 190 more minutes of octagon time in comparison to Benoit Saint-Denis. And Poirier is the more efficient and dangerous distance striker. He's got a positive 1.36 distance striking differential, great low leg kicks, and 13 UFC knockdowns and 10 UFC knockouts since 2013. He's better defensively, and he's displayed durability and the ability to thrive in back and forth wars of attrition which is exactly the kind of fights that Benoit Saint-Denis loves to be in as well. And the UFC strength to schedule advantage obviously goes to Dustin Poirier, and it isn't even close. Dustin has fought, beaten, and lost to the much better brand of competition. Now, Benoit Saint-Denis is 7 years younger than Dustin. He's 2 inches taller, and he's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. So he's younger, taller, and longer. You got to love that. He's a very opportunistic finisher as Saint-Denis, 100% finish rate in 13 pro wins. He's got 9 submissions, and he's got 4 knockouts. And Benoit brings relentless pressure and volume on the feet. Benoit forces a fight, and he's just as aggressive at distance as he is with his wrestling and grappling. His fights go into the deep end quickly, and if you can't swim, this man will drown you fast. The pace Benoit fights at simply isn't sustainable for most UFC fighters, and that's what makes Benoit such a dangerous fighter. His constant offensive output, combined with the necessary durability, heart, and conditioning to withstand damage while continuing to push that unsustainable pace until his opponent breaks. And Benoit's pressure and output with his offensive wrestling and grappling game is probably what makes him such a difficult opponent to deal with. He uses his striking to set up his wrestling. He attempts 12.6 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he gets 4.55 of them. He's hyper aggressive, trying to finish the fight once it gets to the ground, attempting 1.4 submissions per 15 minutes, which is 0.96 more than the divisional average. And he also gets 0.35 reverses per 15 minutes while allowing 0, so he can get out of bad spots as well. Benoit's winning 86% of the control time positions his fights are in, so his ability to be so aggressive wherever the fight goes is what makes him such an exciting fighter and dangerous opponent. So it's another established veteran in Dustin Poirier squaring off against an up-and-coming prospect in Benoit Saint-Denis. Dustin's 35 years old. He's 7 years older than the 28-year-old Saint-Denis. But with that age comes a ton of experience against the best fighters in the lightweight division. Benoit's on a roll right now, having won his last 5 fights in very impressive fashion, shaving the asses of Nicholas Stolze, Gabriel Miranda, Ismael Bonfim, Thiago Moises, and Matt Frevola. And now he's stepping up to fight a guy who has been top 5 in the division since BSD made his UFC debut. These guys have a lot of similarities. They both are offensive fighters who trust their durability and heart to outlast their opponents, taking advantage of mistakes later in fights after their opponents get tired. They both use their pace and offensive output to force these attritional wars, and these guys both come to fight. This is such a sexy co-main event. The matchmaking is perfect. Let's see how BSD looks against an older, more established version of himself. I like Benoit Saint-Denis to win this fight. I think that this is going to be close on the feet. I like the southpaw versus southpaw matchup on the feet, and I think Poirier's calf kicks will be a big difference maker at distance. But Benoit will be bringing high-octane offense of his own, and what I really like about Benoit's offensive attack is how frequently he goes to the wrestling. We just saw Michael Chandler win a ton of minutes with the wrestling and top control versus Poirier 2 fights ago, where we saw Dustin giving up 3 takedowns and 5.5 minutes of control time in the first 2 rounds of that fight. He was down 2 rounds to 0 going into the third when he took advantage of a Chandler mistake in a scramble and wound up finishing with an opportunistic back take and rear naked choke. Dustin also gave up 4.5 minutes of top time in the Charles Oliveira fight when Charles got him down in the second round, and he got his back taken in the third and finished with a rear naked choke. So we've recently seen other top-notch wrestlers / grapplers win minutes and moments against Dustin on the mat. So I think that the opportunity will also be there for Benoit Saint-Denis to do the exact same thing. I can't wait for this fight. And I think we get 5 rounds, and we get 5 rounds scheduled too. So I think the output on the feet and in the grappling realm will be too much for Poirier at 35 years old with as many miles as he has on the engine. I see the aforementioned changing of the guard here, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Benoit Saint-Denis handles this massive step up in competition. And I'm picking Benoit Saint-Denis to win this fight by third round submission. What a phenomenal fight that is. I cannot wait for that one. Let's see here. Can anyone tell me one good win Page had? Yeah, I mean, Douglas Lima. There's just Goichi, Amiyuchi, some guys that, I think Kevin Holland would have murdered these dudes. That's close to Holland's level. No, my biggest issue is Poirier's always struggle with wrestlers. That's a big concern for me, and Benoit Saint-Denis is going to wrestle. Been saying Benoit, baby, and he ain't going to lose me money yet, but sheesh, Justin is a killer. I would pick Saint-Denis over Makhachev. He's really that good, says Pierre. Joshua saying, let's go. Saint-Denis over Islam Makhachev. Sammy saying, I'm going Poirier. I got to support my guys, win or lose. Max Griffin got it. Zahabi got it. Jordan got it. Now my guy Poirier is getting it. Go for it, man. Fubu saying, LOL, cool. Jets homie. Let's see him against a top 10 first. My guy Charles Johnson also, let's go, says Sammy. Brandon saying, I think I got to pass on this one. I want to take DP, but I just don't know if he can do it. A lot of miles. You can support them without betting them. True. Dustin, over 1.5 rounds at minus 170 is probably a better value than taking Saint-Denis at minus 200. Yeah, but that over 1.5 is juiced up to like minus 220 now. I'm serious. He's on another level. BSD versus Topuria super fight will happen soon. Did you see the Ezekiel or Dos Santos fight? Although we have seen Saint-Denis get rocked and cracked before, but he has great recovery. No striking defense except durability. I like the guy, though. He's a cool fighter. Yeah, for sure. I like BSD, but the Islam talk needs to slow down. Gabriel Miranda was landing clean and getting takedowns on this man. Yeah, but you think RDA has a shot at winning? DraftKings method lines aren't even up yet. Yeah, I know, man. I know DraftKings taking their time. I love Poirier, but his hips are gone. Think this is his final ride. After Almeida wins, I'm betting everything on Saint-Denis. Uh-oh. Disclaimer, don't bet on a fighter to support them. Your lost money doesn't go to them. It goes to the bookies. Yes. Might be willing to risk a little on DP late props. And Pavel, I like the over 1.5 a lot. All right, you guys, that brings us to the main event here. Sugar Sean O'Malley at minus 280. The rematch against Marlon Chito Vera plus 240 underdog. Fight doesn't go to decision here at even money plus 100. Let's get these stats up on the screen and first start talking about the trends in this fight. So, and let me get a drink. Working hard tonight, you guys. 14 fights to break down. Check this out. These are my notes. 31 pages of notes, you guys. 31 pages of notes to write up these 14 fights. So I'm definitely working hard here for you guys today. But that's the point. We got to work hard. We got to put in the work in order to wind up having some of this come back to us in profits. So that's what I'm here to do for you guys. Put in the work so that we can all stack cash tickets like flapjacks together. And let's break down this phenomenal main event. Sean, 5-0-1 in his last 6 fights. His last loss came against, wait for it, Marlon Vera. Sean is the UFC bantamweight champion, and this will be his first time defending the belt after winning it against Aljamain Sterling back in August via second-round KO in a bizarre fight where Aljo just really didn't even look to grapple. He shot his first takedown with, I think, 12 seconds left in the first round. I don't know what the fuck Aljo was doing there, but it looked like he was literally trying to lose. The loss against Vera for Sean O'Malley was due to injury. And prior to the injury, Sean looked to be clearly winning the fight before he rolled his ankle and got TKO'd. And I think it's a common talking point to say that Marlon shut down the perennial nerve in his leg. Marlon didn't land one calf kick in that fight. So I don't know why Sean got hurt. I think Sean might have gotten hurt landing kicks of his own that shut down his leg. But if you watch the fight, Sean's the one landing the calf kicks. Marlon Vera doesn't even throw any calf kicks. So very strange how Sean got injured there, but it is something that we've got to keep in our minds, that this guy, Sean O'Malley, has 11 UFC fights, and he's been seriously injured in 2 of them. So just something we got to keep in mind in terms of durability here against one of the most durable guys in the history of the sport in Marlon Vera. So when O'Malley won on Dana White's Contender Series and came into the UFC, it was clear he was going to be a fighter to watch. They brought him along slowly. The only non-tomato can that he fought in his first 7 fights was Marlon Vera, and we know how that fight went for Sean. Then after the Moutinho fight, a switch flipped, and Sugar Sean has looked great. He smoked Paiva in the first round by KO. He had a lukewarm performance versus Munhoz that resulted in a no contest. And then he stepped way up in level of competition and had a career-best performance versus Peter Yan, winning a close split decision. Then he walked through Aljamain Sterling to win the belt, and now Sean has the opportunity to avenge the only loss of his pro career against Marlon Vera in his first title defense. Marlon is hot right now. He's won 5 of his last 6, with the only loss coming via decision to Corey Sandhagen, a guy that Peter Yan recently beat. 5-round Marlon Vera is a problem due to the combination of power and durability he possesses. And he should have 20 minutes to find the big shot versus O'Malley here. Marlon getting the title shot against the guy he already beat is going to be the biggest fight of his career. And if he pulls this one off, he's going to be wearing gold around his waist. Now, Sean O'Malley is 2 years younger than Marlon. He's 3 inches taller, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here. So nice measurables advantages on the O'Malley side. And Sean's the better striker. He's the way better minute winner at distance striking range. He's got a positive 4.45 distance striking differential, which you see here, compared to negative 1.22 for Vera. So it just goes to show you the minute winning differential on the O'Malley side is just massive at distance striking range. 84% of Sean O'Malley's UFC cage time is spent at distance striking range, and Marlon really doesn't wrestle barely at all offensively. So Sean is going to get the distance striking match that he needs here. Now, Marlon Vera has an overall experience advantage with 11 more fights and 210 more minutes of pro cage time. And he's also got the UFC experience advantage with 11 more fights at the UFC level and 3 more hours of octagon time compared to Sean. And he's the slightly better finisher at the UFC level. He's got a 74% finish rate, 11 of 15 wins finished inside the distance for Vera, and it's 6 of 9 for Sean O'Malley, 67%. Marlon is also the more diverse finisher with 4 submissions and 7 knockouts, while all 6 of Sean's UFC finishes come by way of the knockout. And Marlon's going to have a big durability advantage here. Marlon is one of the most durable guys in the sport, while we've seen Sean suffer serious leg injuries twice in only 11 UFC fights. Marlon has power and durability, and he counts on both to find the big shot. He could take what you dish out, so he doesn't need to rush. He eventually finds his way in, finds the big shot, and finishes the fight, or wins the round on damage. Definitely the better moment winner on the ground, and he's the slightly better moment winner on the feet, according to the distance knockdown metric, which is 1.26% for Vera, but it's only 0.88% for Sean O'Malley. Marlon has 12 UFC knockdowns in 22 fights, and Sean has 6 UFC knockdowns in 11 UFC fights. And Marlon has a slight UFC strength to schedule advantage due to the fact that he's fought and beaten the guys with the better win-loss ratios overall, and he's been at this level longer and fought the better guys. Now, it's a great main event on an all-timer of a UFC card. Sean gets the opportunity to avenge the only loss of his career, and Vera gets a title shot after 22 UFC fights and 15 wins against a guy he's already beaten in Sean O'Malley. On the O'Malley side, you have to love the youth, the length, the volume, the power, the distance management, and intelligent defense. He's the way better minute winner, and since Vera can't be counted on to wrestle, he's only got 11 takedowns in 22 UFC fights. Sean should get the distance striking match that he wants. If you're on the Vera side, you absolutely love the durability, the conditioning, the 5-round experience, and the ability to walk through his opponent's best shots and land bigger ones of his own. Vera has fought the tougher dudes. He's never been finished. He's 7-0 to the KO in the UFC, and he's 4-0 to the submission. He's not a minute winner with a 4-7 record to the decision in the UFC, when O'Malley clearly is with a 4-0 record to the decision. O'Malley's minute winning, distance management, and volume versus the power, the durability, the experience, and the conditioning advantage that Vera has. I think that this is going to be a close fight. I don't think we see Sean as aggressive as we're used to seeing him against Marlon here. I definitely like Sean to maintain distance and do the better work at range. And since Marlon can't be counted on to pressure on the feet or wrestle offensively, I think Sean gets the distance striking battle he needs in order to be successful. And I think he wins the minutes on his way to a decision victory here. O'Malley by decision is the pick. It's priced around evens. But I do think Marlon's money line at better than plus 200 is very interesting this week. He should have 25 minutes to test the durability and conditioning of O'Malley. And if he lands big, anything can happen. But the last pick for UFC 299 is going to be Sugar Sean O'Malley to win the rematch over Marlon Vera by decision. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. All right. Let's see here. This card is a banger, says Sammy. O'Malley round 1-2, Very round 3, 4, 5, and split decisions either way. TKS only also. Boob saying, is O'Malley the only rainbow-haired freak we are forced to back? This week, yes. This week, yes. Damn, Weezy, 31 pages. Your UFC 300 write-up is going to look like War and Peace. Yeah, man, it's a lot of work, but that all goes. My Patreon members all get those write-ups for being Patreon members, so they're going to go out to the Patreon members tonight. Pierre, if Almeida can't take Blaydes down, it's over. Yeah, it's not going to look good for him if he can't get the takedowns. Thanks for the work and the show, Unc. You got it, Sammy. I like both, but this is an easy O'Malley spot, says Brandon Olson. Joshua says Cheeto's last chance here. Yes, it is. Brandon saying the thing I like seeing in O'Malley is him filling in and looking quite a bit bigger for being a tall guy in the division. Cheeto is a side here at these odds, says Pierre. Jeff saying Sugar's physique just seems prone to injuries. It's maximized for speed, but not for durability. I've sprinkled Cheeto's round 4 and 5 props. I like the Cheeto round 4 and 5 props this week. If you're betting on Cheeto, you're betting O'Malley gasses or his body fails him. And I think either could happen because Vera is not going to gas and Vera's durability is not going to fail him. This feels like McGregor versus Diaz in modern time. That's interesting, man. If you think that's going to happen, Cheeto KO 345 is plus 850. That's not bad. Pavel Boyer saying on paper, I love everything Sean says should win, but I have a bad feeling about Moroz saying Vera will beat Sean again. Oh, wow. Did he say that? That's interesting. Blom Dog in the room saying, yo, Unc, what's up, dude? We got Zen Monkey saying this feels like an IQ test for Cheeto. Well, he's going to have to get busy, man. This is his last chance at gold. He's got to put it all together like butt cheeks on Saturday in order to beat Sugar Sean O'Malley. And in order to do that, if I were Cheeto's coach, and I'm definitely not, Cheeto has never asked me for advice, and he probably shouldn't, okay? But if I were Cheeto's coach, I would tell him, I want you pressuring relentlessly. You have more durability than this guy, so you need to get into the pocket. You need to be willing to take one to give one. You got a lot better conditioning than this guy. Marlon Vera's conditioning is elite. Sean O'Malley's isn't. So if he can force an attritional war here, count on his durability, and really push a high pace early in this fight, the opportunity for him to get that third, fourth, fifth round knockout or finish against a gassed and beaten up Sean O'Malley goes way up. But if he just sits there at range looking to land one big shot for 25 minutes, it's probably going to look a lot like the Sandhagen fight. We got Dipset UWS saying, Weezy, what's up, dude? We got Fubu saying, I love Cheeto here, but we've seen him watch fights pass by looking for the perfect shot. Yeah. We've also seen him land 1/10 of the volume of his opponent and win a decision. Yes, true. O'Malley's knees are gone. It reminds me of Shogun when he came to the UFC. Is that true? Really? People parlaying O'Malley are crazy, or we're forgetting how injury prone he is. He is very injury prone. We can arguably say Vera has landed far more volume than has in a long time against Pedro Munhoz. That's true. He had a decent performance against Pedro. O'Malley swearing this is just another fight. Could be. If Sugar loses, what's the odds he gets an immediate rematch? I'd say very good, because I think he's such a big fan favorite. This is a crossroads in a career night for Yan, Poirier, Blaydes, and Munhoz and Burns. That's what I've been saying, Cuban Assassin. It's this young prospect against the old established veteran, and it looks like they're setting up this massive changing of the guard, starting to usher some of these guys that have 20, 25 UFC fights out the door and creating a new late 20s age group of superstars to lead the next wave. Victor saying, I like Vera 345, so that plus 850 sounds amazing to me too, man. All right, you guys, that we did it. Let's go. We are on a roll with our underdog picks. We got a win with Rosenstruik last week. We got a win with Ricky Tercios over Raul Rosas Jr. Such a dominant performance that Raul didn't even show up. The week before that, I think we cashed on Bruna Brasil plus 115, plus 3.5 points handicap. I think we're 3-0-1 actually in our last 4 weeks here. So the Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week this week. Had to find you a plus money spot here. And what I came up with was Michal Oleksiejczuk, the money line at plus 125. Now, I think it's going to be a close fight. Pereira's really good. He can mix in takedowns and get one or two of them, I think. And maybe, especially if he's smart and he mixes in a takedown at the end of each round and they're close rounds, I think that, he can win some minutes there. And he's a hard guy to find because he's so athletic and fast, and he's got great lateral movement and footwork that he circles that cage. But that's not going to look good to the judges. Running away from your opponent never looks good at the judges. And frankly, Michal Oleksiejczuk lands with a lot more power and throws with a lot more power. So I think the pressure of Michal is going to put Pereira on the back foot, and I don't think we're going to see the best version of Michel Pereira because of the stylistic components of this matchup. And I'm picking Michal Oleksiejczuk to win this fight flat out, and I like that money line at plus 125. And I'd like first round and second round KO props because we don't really see Oleksiejczuk get better as the fight goes on. He's most dangerous early, and he starts to slow down a little bit as the fight goes on. But the pressure is very good optically, and the power with which he throws it with is also very good optically. I think he'll do more. I think he'll win the first couple of rounds and be able to stay safe in the third to win this fight. And I also think there's a high probability that if there is a finish, it's Michal getting a knockout in the first or second round. And that brings us to the last order of business of the week. And it is Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Which one of these 14 fighters that gets a win on this UFC 299 card, this historic card, this stacked card from top to bottom, which one of them wins it in a way that you just say, whoa, that was dominant? That guy just shaved his ass and did it in dominant fashion. Who's it going to be this week? What are you guys thinking in the chat? Who should Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week be this week? We've hit 4 in a row. We're on a roll. We started off the year ice cold. 0 wins, 2 losses, and 1 fight that didn't happen because it was Manel Kape and he didn't make weight. But since then, we've hit 4 in a row. A couple have looked really good and dominant. Last week, we got a little bit lucky with Muhammad Mokaev in a close fight, but we didn't know he was going to be sick on fight day. But I'm looking to pick the next option here of a guy that's going to make it look easy on Saturday. Who do you guys think here? Let's see. We got Blom Dog saying, I would love to see Cheeto win. Don't think he's allowed to, a.k.a. rigged fight. Cheeto will pull the Cheeto versus Sandhagen. Why is this fight even happening? We got Pavel saying Vera wins. Merab beats Vera. We got Victor saying at Matthew Chuck, I haven't played that yet, but I will play it for sure. Just a nice little stab at it. Pavel saying, you humbled me with Gaziev fight, but I did take Loic by KO. Very good there. I'm glad you got Loic by KO. That was a nice payoff. You're welcome, says Gogo. Blonde Dog saying, sorry to be negative. Jailton smokes razor blades and BSD wins. Cheers, says Blonde Dog. We got Joanna should marry this guy to become Joanna Jędrzejczyk Oleksiejczuk. That would be awesome. That would be a great name. One of the longest names ever. Gogo loves it. We got Victor saying Despaigne should be the ass shaving of the week. Remdog saying it should be Jack Della Maddalena. Benino saying BSD, French on French violence. Let's go. We got Pacu saying Despaigne. We got Pavel Boyer saying, if you look at Michal's last fight, he was struggling against leg kicks and range. Unfortunately, he won against a dude that's much less durable than Pereira. But we shall see. Pereira may shoot down. Yeah, the thing is Michal's not going to be throwing any kicks because he's going to be running away the entire time. It's going to be really difficult to throw kicks when your opponent is walking you down. He's not going to be in kicking range. He's going to be in punching range. And in punching range, Oleksiejczuk is going to beat 7 shades of shit out of this dude. So I love the pressure here. I know what we can count on from Michal, pressure and power, and I think he's going to win this fight. Pavel saying for takedowns, may shoot for takedowns. Yeah, and I think that he should do that. Ass shaving should have to be a finish, in my opinion, but good on you for the win streak, Unk. Yes, sir. Thank you. It got to be the 6'7" Cuban. Yes. Dab up the like button, boy, says Gogo. Blonde Dog says Jailton. And Pavel saying, I think Jack KO1 would be most shocking. I was late, but we expecting Phillips over Munhoz. Phillips by decision is the pick. And the ass shaving of the week this week, yeah, we're on 4 in a row, and I'm looking for a finish. But I'm giving you an underdog, ladies and gentlemen. Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week is going to be Jailton Almeida to shave the ass of Curtis Blaydes. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't ever get fighters as dominant as Jailton Almeida at the price that we're getting him for this week. These are video game numbers that he's putting up in the grappling realm. Everything that Curtis Blaydes has accomplished at the UFC level, like 5.93 takedowns per 15 minutes, 51% control time and only 2% control time allowed. That's all been outdone by a guy in Jailton Almeida who only gets 4.94 takedowns per 15 minutes, but controls his opponents in the clinch and on the mat for 89% of his UFC cage time, allowing the same amount, 1.91, 1.95% control time allowed. Blaydes wins 96% of the control time positions. Jailton wins 97, but here's the difference. 2.47 submission attempts per 15 minutes and 0.31 reverses for Jailton Almeida. Very aggressive, trying to finish fights on the ground, and he can reverse position when he's put in a bad spot. Curtis Blaydes has never attempted a submission in the UFC, and he's never gotten a reverse. Wrestlers are bad off their back, and if there's one thing that Jailton Almeida has proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that he can do at the UFC level, it's fucking wrestle. And this guy is not a guy who takes somebody down 4 times in one round. He takes you down once, and then he either submits you or you lose the round and stay down the entire time. People are not getting back up when Jailton takes them down. And even if they do, they get mat returned less than 5 seconds after their ass is off the mat. So I think that we've got an extremely dominant fighter here. I said it on Stat Diggers on Saturday. I think Jailton Almeida could beat Jamal Hill and Alex Pereira in the same night. Okay? The level of wrestling and grappling that this guy has is unlike anybody else in the 205-pound division and the 265-pound division. The submission grappling, the wrestling, the conditioning, the ability to just go to it over and over and over again and force fights where less than 10% of the cage time is spent at distance striking range. It's Jailton Almeida. He's only 49% implied on the money line right now. He's a slight underdog, but I think he's going to shave this dude's ass. I'm very confident. And that is your Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week this week. What are you guys saying here? We got Matt does not like it. And we got, yes, the Razor Blaydes is going to be the one getting his ass shaved. The Razor gets put to Razor this week. Yes, say. And Blom saying Jailton smokes. Gogo says he likes it. Jeff saying the physique is crazy. He must take his Flintstones, the vitamins, just like me. He says his prayers, Jeff, and he takes his Flintstones vitamins. I'm only one on Blaydes here. Rick saying it doesn't matter who wins. Cheeto will identify as the champ. There we go. You don't think Ryan Garcia got mad CTE or what? He might. He's a boxer. And, you know, it could be. Curtis Blaydes' takedown is like 50% takedown defense. Yeah, horrible. Got Joshua saying, Unc. We got Pavel saying, yeah, I don't see how Blaydes win this unless he relies on power. But even Derek Lewis couldn't put Almeida away. Yeah, and like that's the thing. Almeida just took Derek Lewis down at will in all 5 rounds and then just kept him down. Curtis Blaydes never even took down Derek Lewis. He was too afraid to go into range. Almeida wasn't. He knew he was going to get the takedown every single time. I mean, and if he wasn't afraid to shoot in on Lewis, he's not going to be afraid to shoot in on Blaydes. And he's going to get the job done via ass shaving. Curtis takedown defense, only 35%, not good enough. Vera by KO 3, 4, or 5 is actually plus 950 on FanDuel. I don't mind that at all, Vic. All right, you guys, 83 of you still hanging out live here. Leave me a comment down below. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe. Consider joining the Patreon so you can get access to these great stats. And don't forget, tomorrow night, the much anticipated, much waited for return of probability. We're going to break down all 14 of these fights. Look at all the over-under props. Look at all the KO, sub, decision, inside the distance props. Find the mispriced lines so that we can make plus EV bets that will allow us to stack cashed tickets like flapjacks over the long term. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for coming to my channel and supporting the channel. Thank you to all my Patreon members. I will see you guys tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central Time on Pub Sports Radio for the DFS show with Brady, with Gordo, and with Monk. And then right after that, around 9:15 Central Time, we're going to go live on either my channel or Brady's channel for probability and give you guys a look at what the Patreon probability is going to look like going forward with the content and with the spreadsheets that will be available with it. Thank you guys so much for watching. God bless each and every one of you. And let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 299, the best card of the year. Let's go.